Go to games all the time, or you've got your heart set on that one huge matchup, go to TicketSmarter.com to save. Games all the time, or you've got your heart set on big day of college football, of course, on a week 12 with rivalry week straight in front of us. But I got to say, not necessarily a very eventful week in regards to anything moving, shifting, changing in terms of the championship landscape. Many times we talk about the topsy-turvy nature of college football and talk about all the crazy, wild, zany things that happen. But on this particular day, chalk all over the place. So with all the supposed upsets that are happening and the crazy year that we're seeing in college football, it's really not the case. It's really not the case. About the biggest upset of the day was pretty inconsequential because it involved Auburn losing as a 25-point favorite against New Mexico State. If you were here on Thursday morning for our SEC live show, Brent Beard said, look out for Auburn losing to New Mexico State. He called it. All right, great day of college football nonetheless. The action was really good, as always. There's just so many games you really can't lose. You really can't miss it with college football because if you've got one dud in front of you, you just flip to another one, and there's somebody playing that's entertaining. We had some really tight games at the end of the night here with Wisconsin, Nebraska going to overtime, and the Badgers winning that one to become bowl eligible. Then you also had a game in which Missouri came down to the wire against Florida, pulled that one out with a last-second field goal. Games of more consequence, of course, toward the championship race. I had my eye firmly on Oregon State and Washington as the Huskies survived 22-20. And we will take it through the day in college football. Let's get updated on just two games that are still ongoing. Fresno State at home against New Mexico leads 14-6 late first half. And the Bulldogs looking to go to 5-2 in the Mountain West. They are 8-2 overall. And New Mexico is trying to get to bowl eligibility. I'm sorry, they're 3-7. 3-7 right now. They will not see postseason play. San Diego State having a rough year at 3-7. They've got a 10-7 lead. Now tack on a field goal for the Trojans. San Jose State has tied San Diego State at 10. And the Trojans are still alive in the Mountain West as well at 4-2, and that's pretty much it in regards to what's going on right now. So all the Power 5 matchups in the books, and we just have one precious regular season week left, rivalry week, and it's going to fly by because Thursday's Thanksgiving. So we're going to have to do a lot of prep Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Couple games on Thursday. The Egg Bowl, Stanford, Notre Dame, I believe, are the only two games on Thursday. We'll be here as much as you can possibly imagine with all the big rivalry games and the championship games that are in hand. And, of course, Ohio State and Michigan. And then, of course, Friday, we've got football wall to wall. We'll be here live. We'll be cutting videos. I'll start a breakdown of Ohio State and Michigan tomorrow. And, of course, the top 25 that actually makes sense. All right, let's get right to it. Keep in mind the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. So, do some Christmas shopping right now while you're enjoying the voice of college football. Why don't you do that? Get the Amazon link, open it up, surf around, do what you need to do. There you go. All right, let's get to our first call of the night. We got Jeffrey leading us off tonight. Jeffrey, how you doing?
Hey, Mark, definitely last night you were really tired at the end there. I tried to be quick with my call. I'm sorry. Wanted to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in 2 weeks, but man, yeah, at the end when you read that comment and you said the two cuss words, I did laugh. I couldn't help
Well,
myself. That was pretty
you
funny.
had nothing to be sorry about, Jeffrey. I always enjoy talking to you.
I appreciate that, Mark. I really do. But definitely a lot of stuff I can't wait to get into. Everybody's talking about Louisville, and that's the team
Yep.
I want to talk about first. And I don't know what you think about Louisville, but just to me, I don't think they're as good as people think. A lot of people are thinking that they're better than, like they actually are like a top 10 team. And I did a Twitter poll earlier today, and 70% of people voted no, that Louisville is not a top 10 team in their mind. And I just feel that that's accurate. They're a good team, and I'm happy and proud for Louisville fans and what they've done, but I just keep watching them, and they don't look as good as the other teams that are still in the conversation for the playoff. And if it wasn't for a lot of things going their way, they would not be in the ACC title game. I mean, they struggled against Virginia. They lost to Pitt. They struggled against Georgia Tech, Indiana. They beat Notre Dame when Notre Dame was at their worst. I just don't know how good you think Louisville is, but do you think Louisville's a top 10 or 15 team?
Well, I think they should be ranked in the top 10,
I agree.
roughly, but that doesn't mean I think that they're that good.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say that you think most people are overrating them, but then you take a poll and 70% do not believe that they're a top 10 team.
I mean, I know I agree with that, and that's why I did the poll, because I'm glad that people voted that, because everywhere I like in your chat, your lives are fantastic. Love coming on every week, and I love all the people in the chat. But a lot of people in the chat are saying Louisville's like really good. And then I do the poll on Twitter, and then people say that they're not as good as some people saying. So like, there's just kind of like, it depends on what people are thinking. But I mean, like I said, I think they're really good, and you are right. They deserve to be ranked where they're at. You have them high in your top 25. It actually makes sense. But I just think they're probably like on paper, maybe the 20th best team, or maybe like 18th best team in college football, not 10 or 9 or whatever.
I would agree with that. There's just a difference between how good a team actually is versus what they've earned and what the wins and losses tell us. So to me, they're a college football playoff contender because they should be. They've earned that distinction because they only have one loss. And if they go on to an ACC championship game and win after taking care of Kentucky, and if other things happen, then they should be given consideration as a one-loss ACC champion. But would I line them up against other teams that have the same record or a worse record? Do I think, for example, Penn State, do I think Penn State's a better team than Louisville? Absolutely.
For sure.
I do. And other teams that have 8-2 and maybe even 7-3 records.
Like LSU is better, overall on paper than Louisville. Talent-wise, they're better. I mean, look at the Florida-Missouri game, for example. Florida has the talent to be comparable with Missouri. I think I only picked Missouri to win by 7. And when I talked about the game, I was like, Florida is not playing well. They've struggled this year. They're probably not even going to make a bowl game if they lose their last 2 games against tough opponents. But they're going to be competitive in this game because Missouri doesn't have the big talent advantage over Florida. Florida has probably more talent, but they haven't played well. And then you talk about Louisville, Miami. Miami is probably just as much, if not more talent than Louisville. So Louisville, even though they've played better, and they have more to play for, obviously, being able to go to the ACC title game, they didn't blow them out. They struggled with Miami, and it literally took the end of the game for them to win, like the absolute end. So when you look at teams like this, like Washington, and other teams like that, they're really good, but you see how hard they have to play to win. Like we've seen Georgia against Kent State and Missouri and South Carolina and Auburn in the last couple of years play absolutely atrocious football games, and they win, whereas Louisville and Washington, these teams have to play better games to win because they don't have that talent advantage. They just can't play a D- game and get by. They actually have to play well to win, and that's why they trip up like Louisville at Pitt.
Yeah, we could start the season again tomorrow, and Louisville could play the same exact schedule, and they could be 7-4 right now.
They almost lost to Georgia Tech, Indiana, Virginia. I mean,
exactly. They could have no more injuries, really not play any worse, just have some things go against them, and they could be 7-4. And Vegas knows that. Vegas made them basically a 1-point underdog against Miami. I picked them to win. I came down to I trust Jeff Brom and I trust Louisville of figuring out how to win the game, and I trust Miami to figure out how to lose the game. And that was my determination on how that game was going to play out. And there you go. No, they're not one of the best teams in the country. No.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's why I picked Missouri and Louisville, just because I trust the way that they've been playing more than Florida and Miami. It's hilarious because I think Miami and Florida on paper are just as good, if not better. But I went with, the team that's been playing better. And I want to talk about Florida State really quick, too, because that injury, I don't know if you've seen it yet or not, but, Oh, man, it gave me Mackenzie Milton vibes. To the T. That was, it might not be as gruesome of an injury. We'll have to see, when it comes out and everything. But when I saw it, I was like, man, that is so bad. It stinks, and I'm praying hard for him. It hurts too because Florida State's play well all year. And I told, when I was talking to you a couple of days ago, I think maybe yesterday or maybe last week, whenever I talked last about it, but Florida State is not as good as the other three teams. They're not as good as Michigan, Ohio State, and Georgia. But Jordan Travis made Florida State what they were. And now people are like, Louisville could beat Florida State now. A lot of people were not saying that until now, because obviously if Louisville beats Florida State, it's not to say it's an illegitimate win because it's still Louisville won. Kudos to them. But Jordan Travis is a lot better than the backup quarterback. Tate Rodemaker's had some, moments when he's come in, but that's just a bad blow to Florida State this year. And it's just a bad blow in general to Jordan Travis because Mackenzie Milton never recovered from his injury. And I just hope Travis will be able to recover and get back to playing the way that he has been playing, because he was not probably a legitimate threat to win the Heisman, but he was in the race. He had a fantastic year, could be an NFL quarterback. That was just tough to see.
I don't want to see the college football playoff committee in a situation where, for as much as I want to see them squirm on legitimate selections, I don't want to see them have to make a determination on Florida State and the injury factor, because they've said since ever day one of this committee in 2014 that they would factor major injuries into their decisions. And if they've got Alabama sitting there with one loss in a conference championship, Texas, they've got the logjam of one-loss teams, and Jordan Travis is not going to be playing in the college football playoff, then I would hate to see Florida State be left out because of that.
For sure. If they win out, they have to get in. They can't, leave them out. But if they lose to Louisville, then they're not going to have any chance to get in. It's like if Washington loses in the Pac-12 championship game, assuming they beat Washington State, there's a shot they don't get in either. After all they've done, all those wins over USC, Utah, Arizona, Oregon, it's not going to matter because when they lost, and if all these one-loss teams pertain, if Texas doesn't lose, if Alabama doesn't lose, if Georgia loses to Alabama, they're getting in. So it would just create a logjam, and you would have Texas, Alabama, Georgia, and then whoever wins the Big Ten, Michigan, Ohio State, and then you would have Washington will be left out. And you also got to keep in mind, if Oregon beat Washington, they could get into. So there's a big log jam at the top for sure of teams that it's making the playoff interesting. But some team's going to get left out that deserves to be in. And it's just the way it is. And that's their argument. We should go to 12. Still don't agree with that, but it's going to be interesting for sure. Another interesting thing I wanted to bring up really quick too, Washington State. They blew out Colorado last night. And I know Shedeur Sanders got injured, but this creates a common theme for me. And I've seen it a lot, and I'm sure you've seen a lot. Tons of people have seen it a lot. But why do teams play better sometimes against opponents that they have a hard time, beating or whatever? And then other times they just flat out stink against bad opponents. I don't understand this. Washington, obviously Colorado's not great, but Washington State, if they played like they did against Colorado, against Stanford, Arizona State, or Cal, Washington State would have won all three of those games, and they would have still had a decent year going like 8-4 or 7-5. Instead, they've blown their bowl bid chance because they got to play Washington next week. Rivalries, anything can happen, but Washington State should not be in this situation. Florida, all they had to do was beat Arkansas. They blow it against them, and they haven't beaten anybody but Florida. And then now Florida plays like this against Missouri. Indiana plays like they did against Penn State, and then they go out there, lose to Rutgers 31-14. Stuff like that I don't get. I know teams don't always play, their best or at their worst, and I know that sometimes teams play better because they're playing a better opponent they want to win. But if you play with that same intensity against bad teams, you would win those games, and I don't get that.
Well, the only thing I can say about that is, number one, there's a human element to it. is that people are inconsistent, especially at that age, they're inconsistent. And number two, there is a matchup element to it. So not every team plays the same. And even if you add up certain teams and across the board, when you add up all the elements from a win-loss standpoint, that they're even, they have different strengths and weaknesses. So when they match up against different teams, you're going to see different outcomes because of what they can take advantage of.
I agree with that. I mean, definitely I've seen like with certain teams, like in basketball, especially like Virginia plays slow, Carolina plays quick. I know no one cares about that, but like Carolina always loses to Virginia in basketball because the matchup doesn't work. I get that for sure. You're absolutely right. But it's just crazy to me. Something I've noticed a lot this year with teams, just certain teams playing poorly against teams. Like if you play good against this team, you could have easily beat that team you lost to. It's crazy. But definitely UNC and Clemson, that was tough. They played horrible. They were so bad on defense. Like Clemson has not been a great offensive team this year, and their defense stunk again. And then their offense, Clemson still has a pretty good defense. That was an ugly game. And Carolina just, they were so close to having a great year, but they blew it. And they're 8-3, but that was a tough game to watch. And then Indiana, I saw the stat. I finally had the stat. I said it wrong the other night, but I said that it was the first time since the 90s. But if Indiana beat Michigan State today, it would have been the first time since 1967 through 69 that Indiana beat Michigan State twice in a row. And they were this close. Indiana missed 2 field goals, and they lost the game. And there were a couple of penalties. I'm not going to say, and all that, but there was a couple of missed calls. But Indiana losing to Michigan State, couldn't get the spittoon for 2 straight seasons. I mean, come on. It was so close. For the first time since the 60s.
Yeah, well, I saw the final score, but I got to say that there wasn't a game that was more off my radar than Indiana and Michigan State. I probably checked in on 25 games today, and that was not one of them. I do believe that my civics teacher played on that Indiana team because he would always brag to us that he played on the he didn't brag to us, but he was an offensive lineman on the Indiana team that went to the Rose Bowl in 1967. So
that's cool.
Yeah, so I'm sure he played on that team.
Yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, Indiana just couldn't get it done. But that was a bit frustrating to watch for sure. Alabama, I mean, I didn't see much of the game because they've just blown them out. But my family was happy about the gimme game win over Chattanooga today, 66-10. And then as long as they don't blow it against Auburn, I have the big matchup. But looking forward to these games. I think my last question, because I know there's a lot of people behind me, but Michigan. Do you feel like Michigan would have been I know it's impossible to answer this, but like Michigan has not looked as good the last 2 weeks against Penn State and Maryland. Is that because of Harbaugh? Is it because of they would have played the same way even with Harbaugh, being there? They would have been close because they were close, against Illinois last year before they played Ohio State. Is there any element just because the game's coming up, or is it because Harbaugh's out, you think, or a bit of both?
Boy, I know like you say, ultimately I can't answer that. Nobody can answer that question. It's only a guessing game. But you do bring up some other results from last year. For as dominant as Michigan was last year, most of the season, they did struggle with Maryland at home. They struggled with Illinois the week before the Ohio State game. So, they have yet to play a game like they played today. They've been dominant the whole way. I tend to not put that. Is there an effect of not having Jim Harbaugh there? Of course there is. Everything causes some kind of impact or effect, but I don't think so. Look at what they did last time. I thought they played a good game against Penn State. I think they
just didn't blow them out, but yeah, I mean, they still won. It's crazy. I'm looking forward to the game next week. As a guy that it doesn't matter who wins, but whatever happens, if Michigan wins, then they're going to be like, we won without Harbaugh. We're still better than you. And then if Ohio State wins, Michigan's like, well, we would have beat you if we had Harbaugh. So it's going to be hilarious. The meltdown is going to be real. And whoever loses is going to believe they don't even get a shot to make the playoff unless chaos ensues like Texas, Bama, all these teams lose. It's going to be crazy. I can't wait, but thanks for having me on, Mark. Like and subscribe, everybody, to the Voice of College Football. Tons of stuff I could say more, but I know you got tons of people coming up. I can't wait to talk to you soon. It was a great week of college football, and man, the season's almost done. We got to take advantage of it while we got it.
Thanks, Jeffrey. We'll be here all week. Have a good one. Appreciate you calling.
You too, Mark.
All right. Yes, we will be doing as much as we possibly can. Got to take advantage of this week upcoming. Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Oregon State, all the great rivalries. We got Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Florida, Florida State, and we could go on and on and on. And I'm not necessarily just into championships when it comes to that. So I love all the rivalries. I don't care what the records are. The Egg Bowl is being played on Thursday night on Thanksgiving. I always love that. I was at the first one. I covered the first one that they moved to Thanksgiving. That was a great move, by the way, by the SEC and by those two universities to gain some spotlight on Thursday night on Thanksgiving. Got Mike on the line. Mike, what's going on tonight?
Oh, a whole lot of stuff. Yeah, I do like that the Egg Bowl is on Thanksgiving Day now, especially for the people that don't really watch too much of the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, that was a great move by, when you play a rivalry game that's in its own right, a great game, a great rivalry, tons of tradition, but it's not going to factor in a championship almost never. And it's just going to get stomped in the ratings by bigger games, bigger brands. Move the thing to a different day and everybody watches it.
Yeah, no competition like that unless you're split between NFL. I mean,
and that just started, about 5 years ago?
I mean, well,
with NFL games.
With multiple NFL games. I mean, the Lions have been playing on Thanksgiving as long as I can remember.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking. Yes, I'm well aware that there are NFL games on Thanksgiving. I'm talking about at night versus the Egg Bowl.
Ah, yeah.
They just started a night game in the NFL. I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Hasn't been that long.
Yeah, that's true.
Something like that.
Yeah, now, there's always, there's that, and I always, like to watch Iowa and Nebraska because they always get their own little time slot, and I can't remember how long they've been doing it for Friday.
Well, they've only done it for these 10 years that they've been together in that division.
Okay, so it started whenever the base of the Big Ten West was created.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they started the first year Nebraska was in the Big Ten, which was 2011. It might have been that year. So it's only been 10 or 11 years, something in that range.
Yeah, I said that's usually a good game.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. I was just hoping Iowa was going to lose. My apologies to all the Hawkeye fans out there. I'm celebrating with you. Congratulations for the Western Division Championship. But just because I like things to go down to the wire, I like chaos. I wanted Iowa to lose because I wanted there to be a zillion different scenarios next week.
I'm surprised. I mean, I would think that both Michigan and Ohio State fans would want Iowa to win out.
Why?
Make it a better looking win in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I could care less about that. Why do Michigan and or Ohio State need a better win? They're going to be in the playoff.
Seeding does matter, though.
It could, but neither one of those teams are dropping to 4.
Well, I honestly think that the winner of the game, then beating Iowa, there's a chance they can get the number 1 seed.
They could.
And that's always a sweet seat to be in.
Yeah, I was just a little bit more interested in wanting to see some scenarios to play out and drama. Like I like the whole, like being a baseball fan, or when I like the whole drama of the last weekend of the season. They're a game behind, they're 3 games behind, they're playing in a 3-game series. I like all those. I like breaking down scenarios and all of that.
So I bet you really liked it. What was it? 2004, the Yankees Red Sox series that should have been a sweep and turned out to be everything but a sweep.
Well, yeah, I did enjoy that just from a standpoint of watching baseball, but that's not really what I'm talking about. That's just a series against each other. Like I'm talking about like different algorithms that go, like in the Big 12 right now, there's like 8 different things that can happen. That type of stuff. Like if they win and they win, then that's going to happen. Like the last week of the NFL season, there's usually like 3 playoff spots open among 5 teams. And if this happens, then that happens. But if they lose, there's a bunch of scenarios.
Well, now the Big 12 seems like it's starting to solidify now because Iowa State is now out of it, correct?
Yes.
Kansas
let me
is out of
call
it.
that up. Pardon me?
Kansas is out of it too now, right?
Yes.
So it's basically going to, I'm guessing if everything holds to chalk, it's going to be Texas and Kansas State, with Oklahoma State, kind of needing some chips to fall.
Well, we'll look at it right now. Because I had it all down in my head, but then they obviously played games today, so I got to look at it. But it's certainly not solidified. Let's see here.
Well, I mean, it's a 3-horse race now, right?
Well, you got, Texas has their spot. Well, Texas isn't even, Texas lost to Oklahoma, so they don't even have a guaranteed spot if they don't win. So it's on the screen right there. Texas is 7-1, and Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and Kansas State are all 6-2. I don't know who plays who. Texas plays Texas Tech. I don't remember off the top of my head who else plays, but
doesn't Oklahoma play Baylor last?
No, I think Baylor plays West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Oklahoma plays, it'll hit me here if I see the team in the standings. I think they've got TCU last. Oklahoma's got TCU. Kansas State, I think, plays Iowa State. I think.
Yeah. I don't think they've had Farmageddon yet.
So you got all sorts of scenarios there. I like this. This is what I like. If Texas wins, they're in. But the other three, if there's a two-way tie, then Oklahoma State's win over Oklahoma and Oklahoma State's win over Kansas State matter. But if there's a three-way tie, then you've got all sorts of tie-breaking scenarios you got to go through.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem that none of the top 4 play each other in the final week. So there's a whole lot of formulaic stuff.
Well, I don't know why the Big 12 formed its schedule the way it did. Why are Oklahoma and Oklahoma State not playing the final weekend of the season? Kansas and Kansas State, why are they not playing the final weekend of the season? I don't get it.
Has Bedlam ever been the last game of the season?
Oh, it usually has been the last game of the season.
I thought it was always like the first week of November or something.
No, it's not been every year, but I would say 80 to 90% of the time.
Exactly. I mean, as far as the last week rivalries, I know, ours, Iron Bowl, Apple Cup, Civil War, Territorial War, Arizona State, Egg Bowl,
Florida State, Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky.
Right. All the ACC, SEC matchups, basically.
But yes, Oklahoma State, 2021, 19. It's a little more hit or miss than I thought. 16, 15, 14. So starting in 2016, they always played. If you go backwards from 2016, all of those years, yes, they were playing the last game of the season. I don't know why that changed.
Me either.
But it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I don't like when they change up. I mean, because I always know that, like in week 2 that's always a Cyhawk trophy. Pretty much as far back as I can remember, week 2 is always a Cyhawk trophy. So I don't like it when they move it on me either, because then I kind of get blindsided and don't know what to expect. Well, so we finally got ourselves a struggle win.
Yeah.
And I mean, I personally don't buy the whole Penn State thing being a struggle win. I mean, considering the fact that, it's a first time head coach, top 10 team on the road, two score win. I mean, I guess everybody's definition of struggle win might be different, but that doesn't fit mine.
Oh, I consider that. I wouldn't call it a struggle. I usually term struggle when you're playing somebody inferior, but when you're playing somebody just as talented as you, I just consider it a good game. I thought it was a very close game that didn't go down to the wire, didn't go down to the last play of the game, but it was still up in the air with 2-3 minutes left in the game.
I mean, what wasn't a 2-score game, like 4 minutes left in the game?
Well, Penn State could have kicked an extra point. That would have changed something. Then it would have been a 1-score game.
Yeah, Franklin, he kind of made me scratch my head on that game for a few calls.
Oh, well, I thought he did a horrible job. Yes, I thought he did a horrendous job. And I'm on record a zillion places saying that. But I believe that Michigan was the better team, and I don't think that's debatable. Yeah, they were clearly the better team. So I don't want to make it sound like I thought it was a toss-up by any stretch.
True. And one thing I like about the game coming up is that it looks like Travion Henderson is healthy. So, my goal is to make sure there is as few excuses as possible for next Saturday.
Why do you care if there are excuses?
Well, ego.
Okay.
Like we all like to bicker and chat, Mark.
Well, I understand that. I guess, yeah, I get your point. Yeah, I want both teams to be at full strength. I want everyone to be at full strength, but at this point in the season, that's just not the case. But yeah, I would like the major players to be involved just to make the game better and make it fair and all of those things. But if Michigan lost every starting player, was carried off the field in the first quarter, and Ohio State won the game by 1 point, I'd say, that can't be controlled. Ohio State won the game.
In a technical standpoint, yeah, but there can be legitimate, explanations being brought up.
Oh, sure.
Excuses.
Yeah. I will still say that Marvin Harrison getting knocked out of the game against Georgia had a major impact. Do I know if Ohio State would have won the game? I have no idea. Do I think it's conceivable that they could have won the game? Of course, they could have won the game without him. When you lose one of the best players in the country for the entire fourth quarter, yeah.
Yeah,
so I get your point. I get your point. Definitely get your point. I'm not saying it's not valid, but I was just adding to the discussion. Just wanted an explanation as to why.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I understand that Marvin Harrison did impact, but wasn't Georgia down a handful of players as well?
Yes, and so was Ohio State.
Yeah,
they didn't have their two best running backs. They didn't have their tight end. Cade Stover didn't play. He got knocked out in the first quarter. Ohio State lost starting offensive lineman in the first half of that game. Yeah.
It was a hell of a game, though. I say it was much more competitive than I expected it to be. I mean, I honestly thought that Georgia was probably going to win by 2 to 3 scores. So, it coming down to a missed field goal, that was a bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah. So once I saw, once I saw Ohio State out there playing in the first couple drives, I thought that it was going to be, I was actually confident that they were going to win. I thought they were going to win, but going into the game, I didn't know where their heads were going to be at. So it would not have surprised me if Georgia would have beaten them by 3 touchdowns, because I just thought, how much confidence does this team have after what happened against Michigan? And I was fully confident that Georgia is a championship team with a championship coach that knows exactly who they are, what they need to do. And I just thought maybe Ohio State would have been rattled going into that game.
Yeah, there's always that possibility. But fortunately, there's about 4-week cool off period where you can kind of, get your wits about you and, kind of focus and push the past away. Well, I think I'm going to jump off here. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to the big game.
Appreciate it, Mike. Good to hear from you. We'll talk this week.
You got it. Have a good one.
You too. Choctaw. Ohio State doesn't need decent weather. Columbus gets the same weather as Ann Arbor. Yeah, it depends what you consider the same weather. It's considerably, I think for people in the South, they would consider it to be the same weather, but Columbus is decidedly warmer than Ann Arbor. Shoot, Columbus is decidedly warmer than Cleveland. Many times it snows in Cleveland and there's no snow in Columbus. Like there could be 6 inches of snow 2.5 hours north in Cleveland and there'd be nothing in Columbus. Now at nighttime, it's probably about the same. So I'm looking up the temperature right this second. I doubt if there's any difference at all. Yeah, there's no difference right now. But yeah, the Ohio State Michigan games, all you have to do is go through history. The warmer games are in Columbus and the colder games are in Ann Arbor. Every time that it snowed in that game, and I've been watching this freaking game for 47 years, every time that it snowed, it was in Michigan. I can't think of one time it snowed in Columbus, and it seems like it's usually like 55 or 60 degrees in Columbus, and every time they play in Ann Arbor, it seems like it's 30, 35. So, Choctaw, I don't know where you're writing from. You maybe Montana. But yeah, it's a bit different. All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Check out those Big 12 standings. They're right on the screen. Memorize them if you would like. The real MVPs here. What's going on tonight?
Well, my Kentucky Wildcats took another humiliating and embarrassing loss today at the hands of a top 40, a top 60 South Carolina team.
We'll go 60.
I mean, Mark, yeah, if you've seen a team try to find a way to lose a football game, that would basically describe what Kentucky did today. Dumb penalties, bad penalties, stupid turnovers, bad passes. They got in their own way.
I saw one play. I was watching a bunch of other games, but it was one of those deals where everybody's at halftime and, Kentucky, South Carolina. Let's see what's going on with that. I flipped it on. I saw Dane Key catch a pass that was going for like a 25-yard gain, and he fumbled. So I saw one play, and I saw exactly what you are talking about.
Yeah, well, Devin Leary, we had another drive. We had it at in the red zone, and he threw it right to a defensive back and in the end zone. So we could have had 3 points there. 3 points would have helped us out. It would have been a tie game. At the end of the game, Kentucky, Devin Leary decided to hold on to the ball for it felt like 45 seconds, and then a South Carolina edge rusher hit him as he was finally deciding to throw the football. Fumble, or the South Carolina defensive lineman actually picked it off. It didn't even hit the ground. So we're just a bad football team, Mark. We're just undisciplined. I think there's a lot of egos on this team, and I think some people's egos need to be checked at the door.
Well, you will have the opportunity to make your season next week.
Yeah, I think this is probably going to be the 5th top 15 team Kentucky's played this year, Mark. So they're going to be used to it, which is good.
I keep hearing that that the SEC East is no good. We were just on our Florida State show this week, and they were telling me how bad the SEC East is, that it's horrible, and nobody's any good in that division. But you're telling me that Kentucky's run into some top 15 teams.
Yeah, Kentucky's played Georgia, Missouri, Tennessee, Alabama, and now Louisville.
Yeah, I know.
That's got to be the hardest schedule in the country. Or if it's not the hardest, it's got to be right up there. I mean, that's brutal.
I don't know if it's the hardest schedule in the country.
It's got to be up there. 5 top 15 teams? 5 top 20 teams? It's a tall task.
Yeah, but the rest of the schedule is pretty bad.
Well, I mean, Florida's okay.
Florida's okay. South Carolina's not good. Vandy's horrible, and the 3 non-conference games are horrible.
You're right. But those top 15 teams, man.
And Mississippi State's not that good.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah.
But who did they beat in non-conference play, by the way?
They beat Arizona.
Okay, I just want it out there for all the people that saying the SEC is trash. Is the SEC still has the biggest upset win this year?
The biggest upset win.
If
What?
you go by seeding in conferences, Mississippi State's like the 12th best team in the SEC. Arizona's the 3rd best team in the Pac-12.
Arizona's the 3rd best team in the Pac-12. Okay.
Go by standings.
Okay, if we go by the standings, all right. Yeah, they're in. Okay.
They can win the Pac-12.
Yes, they can.
It's what I tell you about, Mark. There isn't a SEC bias, as people like to say. There's a big brand bias. And all that means is if you replace the word Arizona with USC or Oregon, Arizona team would get a lot more hype. But since their name is Arizona, nobody cares about them.
You are right about that. You are absolutely right. Because even if we took a poll among our chat here to list the best teams in the Pac-12, Arizona would not get its full due. And back to your Kentucky team, I'm curious, do you care about this rivalry with Louisville?
I mean, I care, and as it's a stake of pride, but most people just, we're what is it, high tides raise all ships type mentality. We want everyone to kind of succeed. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if most of the Kentucky fan base has completely checked out at this point and is turning it on to see them play St. Joe's in basketball. We're just horrible, Mark. I mean, I heard the stadium sold out for Louisville. They're going to be packed. This is their Super Bowl. And I was going to ask you, Mark, if Louisville goes 12-1 because of the Jordan Travis injury, do they even have a chance to make the playoffs?
I sure hope so.
Well, I saw, last year the community did their Patreon poll of playoff teams. And I would come on here and argue that Tennessee should be ahead of Alabama. But every time they had Tennessee below Alabama because Tennessee had their quarterback hurt. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
So I'm very worried for Florida State. Even if they go 12-1 or even 13-0, they could be left out of the playoff because Jordan Travis got hurt.
Well, the committee has said from day one that they do take major injuries into consideration.
I agree, which is silly, because why are we even playing these games then?
I would agree with that. I think that if Florida State goes undefeated, even if they win each game by 1 point, if they're undefeated, they should just be in the playoff. That's all there is to it. Yeah, I don't want the committee telling us what they believe could happen because there's an injury.
Right, and that's why I was so adamant about Tennessee being ahead of Alabama last year. But I think two SEC teams are the loser of Michigan-Ohio State now has a pretty clear path to making the playoff, because a 12-1 Florida State who wins the ACC championship, or an 11-1 Michigan or 11-1 Ohio State, I think they're going with the 11-1 team all the time now.
Well, I'm not so sure Florida State's got an easy go next weekend against Florida.
Well, if they lose that game and beat Louisville, they'd be 12-1.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is, even if they lose that game, I think they're out. But if they win that game, I think it's more of a conversation, especially if it's Michigan, because Michigan's played nobody except Penn State up to this point. And also, Mark, I wanted to bring this up. The best offense Michigan has played up to this point is Maryland. They were the 58th ranked offense, and they gave up the most points they've given up all year.
Yep.
Isn't that kind of interesting?
It is. Maryland gave them quite a game, and Maryland made a lot of blunders in that game.
So I know Michigan. I know Michigan fans should be happy because they beat Maryland, and Maryland is a decent team. Not a good team, not a great team, but they're a decent team. They're probably a top 50 team. But, when you want to win championships, you need to think about what's it like when you're going to be playing in Oregon, a Washington, a Georgia, or an Alabama. And I think all four of those teams I just named can absolutely torch Michigan right now, Mark.
Or they could worry about playing Ohio State in 7 days.
They could, but I don't think Ohio State has the quarterback to torch Michigan.
I'm certainly confident if Ohio State plays either of those teams on the West Coast that they would win that game.
I think they could win that game. I think it's just I think styles make fights.
You think they could?
Yeah, I think it's 50-50. I think it's a coin flip game.
It's not like I think Ohio State would just roll past Oregon or Washington, but I've seen enough of those teams, and I just know from experience of Ohio State NFL teams playing Oregon and being an underdog, and me thinking, "Are you kidding me, Vegas? You screwed up." And what happens? Ohio State beats them. I watched Washington tonight. Was I impressed with Washington? Do I think Oregon State's a good team? Of course, they're a good team. They're nowhere close to an elite team. They're extremely limited. DJ Uiagalelei, I've defended that guy in a number of places. He was indefensible tonight. He was terrible. And they won by 2 points. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Ohio State's not been its normal explosive offense, but I don't know. I don't see Washington competing with Ohio State. Oregon a little bit more so.
Oh, my point was even the competitiveness of the games. I think when Ohio State plays Michigan, I think it's going to be very similar to the Penn State games they played. I think it's going to be a defensive struggle. I think if Oregon plays Michigan or Washington plays Michigan, they're going to put up some points, and they can put up points in a hurry, especially Oregon. I mean, Bo Nix looked incredible today.
I understand that, but Bo Nix and Oregon look incredible against a bunch of lousy defenses. I think Michigan would beat both of those teams as well.
Well,
I think the four best teams in the country are in the SEC and the Big Ten.
Oh, I agree with that. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan.
Yes.
I think Georgia and Alabama probably beat both of those teams in the playoffs, and Big Ten goes 0-2. But, it probably can get decided on the field. And that's what's going to be great about the 12-team playoff, is we're not going to have any of these issues with teams that can win the national championship not making it in. And speaking of Georgia, did you see them playing today, Mark?
No, I didn't see any of that game.
Oh, man, they looked elite today.
I've seen them enough in recent weeks. I didn't need to see them blow Tennessee out.
Well, I mean, Georgia always has this weird habit of giving up a touchdown on the first drive, and then they just completely smother you and shut you down.
Yep.
I've never seen anything like it, but Brock Bowers to me looks like the best player in the country. Carson Beck looks like the best quarterback in the SEC and probably a top 10 quarterback in the country. He's unbelievable. It's really hard for me to see anybody being Georgia this year, Mark. I think Georgia has separated themselves from everybody else. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think if somebody has, it's Georgia, but I'm not going to be so quick to jump to that. But I think Alabama's going to give them a good run in 2 weeks. Yeah, but I get your point. But they're running Tennessee and Ole Miss and Kentucky out of the building.
Right, but they've been running people out of the building since September 30th. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, except for somebody in there gave them a game. Mizzou.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a 9-point game, and Mizzou is what, a top 15 team, top 10 team?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be like Michigan. I mean, Penn State. What is it when Penn State play Michigan? It's a good game. Georgia plays Mizzou. It's a good game. Goes back to my big brand bias. You replace the word Missouri with Texas A&M, Florida. People are going to say it's a good game, but since it's just Missouri, nobody cares about them.
You are basically right. Yeah. And if any of the teams you just mentioned was doing exactly what Louisville was doing right now, there would be questions about them to say, wow, they're kind of struggling, but we would still give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right. If all you did, Mark, again, it goes back to the big brand bias. You replace the word Louisville with Clemson. Oh, people would be talking about how they should absolutely be in the playoff.
Yeah.
But people don't think about it. Nobody talks about Louisville having one of the 10 best defenses in America, having one of the best third down defenses in the country. Nobody talks about that, which is interesting. Nobody talks about how their head coach is probably one of the 10 best head coaches in all of the sport and one of the top 5 offensive minds in all the sport. I mean, he won that game today. I don't know if you saw that against Miami.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And then Mario Cristobal did Mario Cristobal things. I mean, he just he needs a game manager coordinator.
Yeah. Well, I told our first caller when it came down to my pick, I just figured Louisville is the type team that has the type coach that I have determined they will do the right things to win the game, and Miami will do the wrong things to lose the game.
And I'm worried that's the exact same thing is going to happen to my team next week in Kentucky when they play them. But anyway, Mark, that's all I got to you. Fight on to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, making their first bowl game since 2018.
All right, good one from the real. Yes, Georgia Tech took out the mighty Syracuse Orange tonight. Among that muck of ACC teams that just kind of hang around 5 wins that are all pretty awful. So Georgia Tech is better than some of the more awful ones. They are less awful. So they're going to go to a bowl game. We're going to watch them on December 27th. We're going to see them play. I don't know. Who are they going to play? Are they going to play, I don't know, Northwestern? Okay. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We got Michael on the line.
Hey, Mark. Do you want to be the new offensive coordinator for Purdue?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Do you want to be the new offensive coordinator for Purdue?
I'll give it a shot. How much does he make?
I'm sure 7 figures.
Yeah, I'll take that job for 1 season.
Oh, my God, man. How is it Purdue, they get down there to the goal line, and they cannot get the ball in? Why they go shotgun? You got 2 big, well, Tyrone Tracy's not as big as Mockery, but still. You're inside the 5 several times, and you come away with no points.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but 15 points against Northwestern is not exactly getting the job done.
No, it is not in 2 plays. Today's game was just the defense just got worn out. They gave up one of the touchdowns came on a corner blitz, and I didn't even get to watch the game because they were showing the IU Michigan State game on Big Ten Network, and I live in Indy and stuff, so go figure. But no, I mean, you could not have perfectly called a better play than they did with the corner blitz with Northwestern. They just missed tackle. Next, touchdown Northwestern. But anyway, no, kudos to Northwestern. Congrats, you're going bowling. Like I said the other day, David Braun is the coach of the year for the Big Ten and stuff like that. But how surprised was you by Utah and Arizona?
Yeah, I was surprised by the score. I picked Arizona to win, but yeah, I was surprised by the score. Kyle Whittingham, I guess he can't always will his team to a win or being competitive, but they've been so competitive against the likes of USC and against Washington. But this Arizona team, they are a team that nobody should want to play right now.
Mm-hmm. And like this, you wonder if the conditions up in Corvallis had something to do with the game tonight.
Oh, sure it did. Yeah, it did. Although Michael Penix in that passing attack has not been right for quite a while.
Is he got like some kind of arm issue or something, or injury or something, or they just doing enough to get through?
Well, he's had his number 2 receiver out for a while, and he came back tonight, McMillan, but he didn't factor into the game.
Mm-hmm.
So he was pretty much locked in on his number 1 receiver, Rome Odunze. And I tell you, if DJ Uyunglele had a clue, Oregon State would have won that game.
Yeah, same here. Stuff like that. Is that what you expected with Michigan today?
No, I thought Michigan was going to blow Maryland out.
Especially the way they started the game
wrong
too.
on that game.
especially the way how the game started too. I thought, okay, 16-0 first quarter, and it's gonna be a Michigan cruise. But you gotta give credit to Maryland for fighting and stuff like that. But no, everybody thinks that Louisville's overrated.
Is that a statement or a question?
Question: why does everybody think Louisville's overrated?
Everybody thinks that. Well, first of all, I don't know that everybody thinks that, but for the people that do, it's because their name's Louisville, number one. Number two, they aren't winning games decisively. So everyone has struggles against lesser competition, but they have struggles every week against lesser competition, and they barely win every game. But it's to their credit that they pull these games out, but they've lost to a 3-8 team, Pitt, by 17 points. So who else has done that? There's nobody else anywhere close to playoff consideration that's lost to like a Pitt team by 17 points.
Yeah.
So nobody has a loss that bad, number one. Number two, they've just got this string of, well, their last outing was on a Thursday or Friday night against Virginia. I watched that game, and they should have lost. So Jeff Brom's doing a masterful job. They're a good team, but I can name all sorts of teams that are not anywhere close to a playoff bid that I think are better than Louisville.
Yeah, but how often when we was talking when Jeff was at Purdue was okay, not a great team and stuff like that, and they had issues, and they were still able to squeak the wins out there too when Jeff was at Purdue.
When was the last time that Purdue was 10-1?
Oh no, I gotta go back to when I was in elementary school. But I'm saying, they've had. I mean,
we actually have to go back before I was alive to when Purdue was 10-1.
No. You gotta go back to 1979. Sure.
They were 10-1.
Actually, they've 10-2. They finished 10-2.
Yes, they went 9-2 in the regular season. So I'm backing up my point. The last time Purdue was 10-1 was before I was born.
I don't even think they was before, but I digress. But no, I'm saying but yeah, Purdue was like that there too. It kind of remind me they're like a bend but don't break team. They've been so far, but they don't finally break. That's what I'm trying to say about Jeff Brom's teams.
Yeah, they're not good enough to dominate decent competition. They're not even good enough to dominate bad competition. They're good. I'm giving them all sorts of credit. They figure out ways to win games. Brom's an excellent coach. Plummer is not a great quarterback, but he is making the right decisions, doing the right things. They've got a two-headed monster running back that is working extremely well. Their defense is really solid. They've got a good team. But aside from a 4-touchdown win against Boston College, they don't have any decisive wins.
Yeah, true, and stuff like that. Georgia Tech, but I see their bowl became bowl eligible too. But my thing is with Purdue, how is it they can have so much success running until they get inside the 5-yard line? And then it seems like just bogged down. Is it because they're going shotgun?
Because teams can shrink the field because the defense doesn't have to be concerned with the passing game at the 5-yard line.
I'm sure, but still. Or is it – but I don't know. Maybe it's a shotgun, but why is it Ryan Walters has actually told Grant, stop going shotgun inside the 5-yard line and just go and just – instead of like – there was 2 times say Purdue was at the 1-yard line. Third down, no, actually, like 2 different times. They went for it both times on 3rd and 4th down, and it's been like this year. They have not gotten it because they always went shotgun.
Yeah, I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't run the Purdue offense. They run a shotgun inside the 5-yard line. I don't know. Somebody needs to ask Ryan Walters.
No, I'm saying why is it in general, very few select teams have success with it, and most of the teams that try it don't have success with it.
Have success with running a shotgun inside the 5-yard line?
Yes.
Okay. I think there's a pretty simple explanation as to why Purdue is not successful in short yardage plays. And I haven't even seen most of them because their offensive line's not good enough.
Yeah. Injuries. No, I mean, I'm not saying Purdue. I am, but I'm saying, have you seen a lot of teams this year, even the good teams?
What? Yes. If I seen the good teams do what?
Go shotgun and not get in when it's stuff like that. That's
Yes,
what
I
I'm
see
asking.
good teams. Almost everybody's running a spread, and certain teams do not run any plays under center. Yes, I see that. I don't agree with it, but
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why they keep doing it if it's not working.
some of them, it does work. With the new rule about pushing the ball carrier, I don't know why anyone would not do that. That seems to work almost 98% of the time.
What game surprised you today? Was you surprised by UCLA and USC?
No. What game surprised me today? I don't think there were really any surprises today. There was not an upset. Was there an upset? One upset anywhere besides Auburn, and they're not even on the radar because there's your surprise. But then again, I said this off the top. We had an SEC show on Thursday. Our guy Brent Beard came on. He said New Mexico State's going to beat Auburn. They're a 25-point underdog, and they did.
Yeah.
No, I was not surprised by any. The most surprising result was Maryland's hanging with Michigan. For me, I thought Michigan was going to blow. I thought that game was going to be, 42-13.
Something like what Minnesota and Ohio State was, 37-3.
Yeah.
I meant. Oh, my prediction for the game next week is 28-24 Michigan.
Okay, great. That makes me feel better.
Yeah. And I think somehow next week, I don't know how they're going to do it, but by the grace of God, Purdue will retain the bucket.
Okay, that will be a stellar matchup, I'm sure. Purdue, 3-8 now?
Yep.
Indiana 3-8.
Yeah.
They playing that game at noon. Nobody will be watching that game.
Nah, true. Everybody be Christmas shot. I won't even be watching the game because I've been working the same time. But no, how much 7 shot does Washington State have against Washington next week?
10%.
All right. No, I was just wondering because I didn't know. Last thing, is it safe to take the earmuffs off after the end of the stream last night?
I don't know. If somebody says something just as stupid as they put in the chat at the end of the last show, then who knows?
All right. Well, anyway, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and I will be back in the stream. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Michael.
See ya.
All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Matthew Miller says, what the hell has Tennessee done? Stop ranking them. Was Tennessee ranked this week? I don't know. I don't know what the AP poll is. I couldn't even tell you if I had Tennessee ranked. They were 7-3. So considering that I believe every 7-3 team was ranked by myself and the AP poll from what I remember seeing. I didn't look at the AP poll, but I remember doing the top 25 and somebody mentioning the AP, and we looked at the AP, and I think every 7-3 team in the country was in the rankings, both my rankings and the AP rankings, I think. So that's why they were ranked. Because up until Saturday, they got blown out by Missouri. They lost to Florida, and they lost to Tennessee. They lost to Alabama in a competitive game. And did Tennessee beat any decent teams? They beat Texas A&M. And I guess that would be about it. Texas A&M and Kentucky, 2 6-4 teams entering today. So the problem is that when I do my rankings, these group of 5 teams, none of them deserve to be ranked. They have not earned rankings in my eyes by any. It's not even close. They're not even close, not even remotely close to being top 25 teams. If you can't beat App State without like a miracle, like you are not a top 25 team. Like we have this mindset, or at least the AP voters and the coaches poll, that there's like this. They have very little sensical judgment. They just automatically say, we're ranking these records in the Power 5, and then we're doing a little cutoff. And then basically, if you are such and such and 0. If you're 5-0, 6-0, once you hit like this magical 6-0, 7-0, we're going to start to rank you. Even though 98% of the time, that win that got them to 7-0 or 8-0 was some like win over a 3-6 Old Dominion team. But it's just that, okay, they're 7-0 now. We're going to start to rank them. They didn't do anything to earn that ranking, but beat a bunch of horrible teams. Beat a bunch of teams that are like 90th and worse in the country. Tulane's got the best showing of any group of 5 team that I can think of. Correct me if I'm wrong. They played a pretty formidable football game with their backup quarterback against Ole Miss in September. That's the best showing from a group of 5 team I can think of. But, ranking Liberty and James Madison because they win a bunch of games, they could, the schedules are just horrendous. Okay. This is only one of a million examples I could put out there. The year, I think this was Steve Sarkisian's first year. Louisiana went 13-1 that year, and they were ranked in the top 25. They've made it all the way up to like number 14 or 15 in the country. Well, what do you think their one loss was? They played Texas, who was 5-7. Was there any consideration for Texas being ranked? Well, of course not. They were 5-7. They beat Louisiana by 3 touchdowns. That's the separation. That is one of a million examples of the separation. These group of 5 teams, they just shouldn't be ranked. It's just a different level of football. They should rarely be ranked. Very rarely. All right, Jackson's here. Jackson, what's going on tonight?
It's going pretty good in the wonderful world of the voice of college football. How's it going with you, Mark?
I'm doing just fine.
I don't think Matthew Miller's going to have to worry about Tennessee being ranked tomorrow, especially in the top 25. That actually makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know what really got to him there, but we appreciate the comment there from Matthew, who did his Texas show here tonight. So if anyone wants to check out Texas, who beat Iowa State, of course.
Yeah, it's official. Texas in the Big 12 title. I can't wait to see what that Black Friday matchup's going to look like. But then again, Black Friday football is always exciting right there.
Is that when the Texas Tech game is?
It's going to be on nighttime, 6:30 p.m. on ABC.
So if Texas loses, and so regardless of who else wins, they would be in the Big 12 championship game?
Yeah, regardless of the result, they're still in the Big 12 title game, but they're out of national title contention.
Well, sure. Because they obviously lost Oklahoma, but they will not have had a game against. They didn't play Oklahoma State.
Nope.
And they beat Kansas State, of course. Okay.
Yep. But there's something I was thinking about, something I saw from your friend Johnny Hoover on the Oklahoma channel and the Big 12 channel.
Yeah.
Go check out the Big 12 channel. It's the go-to football content for Big 12 football. He had a little something involving the history. That's my little tweet. That's the tweet I got pulled up. It's about the history of the Oklahoma BYU series, and it includes today's game where Dylan Gabriel got hurt right before halftime. He got the head injury today. And it brings up the 2009 game where Sam Bradford got hurt in the second quarter. I swear, it feels like BYU is kryptonite for the Oklahoma starting quarterbacks in a way.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah. But fortunately, this is going to be the only conference game we see for Big 12 history for Oklahoma BYU.
Yeah, and it looked like it was a pretty good game. I didn't see any, but BYU kept it close.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about it. Yeah, because it's unfortunately the only time we'll see them as conference opponents, unless we somehow see BYU join the SEC, but that's not going to happen. But then again, stranger things have happened. It was pretty fun watching a little bit of that and that Louisville Miami game, especially that last play. I mean, that was close but no cigar for the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, I was thinking about where like Chris Berman and Tom Jackson go, "What do you do, Tom? What do you do, Tom? Knock it down." Well, it was not down, but Miami was just a bit outside.
Yes, Xavier Restrepo was right there, but yeah, he had a ways to get to the end zone there.
Oh man, I had some fun watching that game, and I was like, oh man, I picked Miami to win that one, but I was thinking about my good buddy Austin watching that game. I'm like, oh man, he's a nervous wreck watching that game. He's a little nervous watching old Louisville, but I am happy for him that Louisville is in the ACC title game. I am sad for our Miami friends that they've been a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is. It's how it goes. There's always college basketball for Miami, of course. I was thinking a little bit about Auburn and New Mexico State. I was like, am I in like a different reality or something, or is this real life? But then I remembered Jerry Kill's coaching New Mexico State.
Yeah.
Dude has done a tremendous job at that university. I mean, before he got there, they were a universal doormat.
Yeah, he's doing a heck of a job.
Oh man, if he leads New Mexico State to a 10 or an 11 win season, because let's not forget they're going. Well, I don't think they're going to be in an 11 win season. Likely a 10 win season, I'm sure. But if they were to have that, it'll be their best season since 1960, where they were 11-0, won the Sun Bowl that year. I made sure to do my homework on New Mexico State today.
Yes,
I was like,
nice job.
Well, thank you. Well, I hope to do more of my homework on all the college football teams for the next week or so.
Yeah, so it'll be, of course, 2 weeks from tomorrow. We'll get the playoff bids, and we'll also get all the bowl games, and that's always fun to look at all the bowl matchups and the history of the bowl games and all of that. So you'll be sure to call in, and we'll size up all the bowl matchups.
Oh, that'll be the plan. If you're all right with it, man. I mean, I'd love to do that. I mean, it's always fun discussing the bowl games, but it's just like, I'm so excited about next week with Rivalry Week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and especially with Black Friday. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I didn't realize Black Friday was a shopping day until I was 16 years old. I thought it was like a holiday where you get to watch football and eat Thanksgiving leftovers.
Really, that's what it is. It's not really necessary that you even know that it's a shopping day. Absent of any significant others that would drag me out to go shopping, I certainly have not gone out myself.
I don't blame you. I'm plopping my little butt right here, especially with the college football going on. And for the first time ever, we're going to see an NFL game on Amazon Prime, which, I mean, I know there was a lot of people upset about, but I'm like, no complaints for me. This is Black Friday, one of my favorite holidays.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. And again, thank you for having me on tonight. And I'll be seeing you soon. And stay safe, stay warm. It is cold out.
Thank you, Jackson. Appreciate that. All right. I was caught off guard by this comment that Exploring with Ben and Sam made here. So Ben writes, Mark is getting killed. Obviously, this was 15 minutes ago. So who knows what was being talked about at the time. So I was thinking, what in the world was I being killed? And I see this one. Maybe I'll bring on Sean while I bring up this comment. So, you're always subject to get raked over the coals if you put any nonsense in the chat. You understand when you're on this show, part of our community here, I'm always going to hold you accountable if you don't know what you're talking about. Roman Hemby ran like a spooked deer against Ohio State in the first half of that game. 8 carries, 35 yards. Yes, it was a torrential, stellar performance by Roman Hemby against Ohio State. He had a 17-yard run. No, I knew when I looked that up, I thought Roman Hemby and nobody ran against Ohio State for the Maryland Terps. That did not happen. All right. Sean, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm fantastic. How are you, Mark?
I am doing just fine. What's going on?
Oh, nothing much. Just celebrating a fantastic college football Saturday. Fantastic's probably overstating it, but
yeah, it was a pretty mundane, marginal. It was decent. Yeah. There's always, when you've got 130 teams and so you got 65 games, there are going to be some good games. But there was nothing that outstanding. It was fine.
Right. I was especially interested in the Washington-Oregon State game. Washington put together a win that I didn't know they were really capable of winning. Like, I mean, being a, kind of an ugly, sloppy, tough, blue collar kind of game.
Yeah, they've had a few of those.
Yeah, but I mean, most of them have been just because the opposition just wasn't up to the task at all. I mean, they faced a capable opponent today, and an opponent that wants to play that kind of game, right? That wants to play like
yes.
You're right, and they answered the call.
Yeah, they did. That's a nice win on the road. I don't want to take anything away from Washington, but I guess I've heard from the wrong people because I've just been hearing how great Washington is all year, and I just don't buy into it to that extent. They're a really good football team.
Yeah.
But just that they just have this unstoppable offense, and I don't see it. They're good. Yeah, they've got a really good quarterback, and they've got one outstanding receiver and some other
pretty good ones.
Good players.
Yeah.
On offense, but I don't. Yeah, I think they're a good team. They're a good team. They're not a great team, but people talk about them like they're some unstoppable juggernaut.
No, but I mean, like, I thought this was the type of the game they were set up to lose tonight. On the road. With conditions favoring the opponent.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to give credit where credit is due, right?
Sure. They found a way to win. Or, yes, they did find a way to win. My goodness, if they would have had just, I don't know, any one of 8 or 9 other quarterbacks in their own conference playing on the other side, Uiagalelei was terrible during large stretches of that game.
Do you think the other quarterbacks would have been better under those circumstances, though, with that weather and that conditions?
They would have made better decisions if the conditions were as bad as they might have been, and it's difficult to tell from television, then why are you throwing the ball like in the last 10 minutes of the game? I don't know how many times he threw a ball 35 or 40 yards downfield, down the sidelines on a one-on-one matchup in which the guy was completely covered. There's just hoping for something, I guess.
I mean, he's one of the few quarterbacks in college football that can like throw through those conditions, though. Like he's got the arm that can actually like pierce through.
Yeah, he has an arm. There's no question. But man,
Yeah, I'm not defending because he did make some questionable decisions down the stretch in that game, no question. But
Herb Street said about 3 times, you may want to pick on a different player.
yeah,
You're picking on. You don't have Marvin Harrison Jr. You don't have that. Well, he did with Roma Dunze, but I'm sorry, I was flipping it around. Anyway, he doesn't have that player, but he kept picking on Jabbar Muhammad with just middle of the road wide receivers.
Yeah,
I just don't know what he was doing half the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some of the play calling could have been a little bit more patient, I guess, during that game. They could have tried to. I mean, they've got a great offensive line. Oregon State's got one of the best offensive lines in college football. They could have, tried to bleed the clock a little bit, tried to run the ball a little bit. They would have had success, I think, in those spots, but yeah, they kept going for the jugular in those spots, and it was not working out. Yeah, so anyway, in the Big Ten today, Michigan, Ohio State. Anything you gleaned that leads into the matchup next week at all?
Not anything that important. Of course, Michigan didn't play well, but everyone's due a game
right
that they're not going to play that great. And I don't think Maryland's they're a decent team. They're they're lost in the middle of the Big Ten with all sorts of other teams that they can lose to Illinois one week and they can play on Michigan's level the next week. They're all over the place. I really like Talia Tagovailoa, but
they're like the one team in that league that can really elevate, that they can be play with the best. And
the last couple of years they played with Ohio State and Michigan last year. They played with Michigan today. But they also had Penn State completely blow them out. But they have are cover corners that can lock those receivers down. Their guys in coverage were really good today, for one thing. And they were stout enough against the run. Michigan ran on them to a certain extent, but they didn't just shred them in the run game by any stretch. But Talia, he, like most college quarterbacks, he's going to make a few mistakes, and he does. He throws a few to the other guys, but he looks amazing in spurts. He had a drive where he threw about 4 straight passes that were about as good as any that you'll see.
Yeah. And I'm saying, did any of that give you a blueprint at all for how Ohio State can attack them next week? I mean, Ohio State has much better edge players. Guys, So, do you think McCord can be that precise?
McCord, he can be. Talia's been doing it a lot longer and more consistently, but I've seen him throw some balls close to what Talia was throwing today. Now to throw them on one drive, 1, 2, 3, 4, I haven't seen that.
Right. No.
But I also haven't seen him really since the beginning of the season, near the start of the season, make the kind of mistakes Talia did either. So he's been pretty protective of the football. Today's play by both teams just continued a trend for me that's been going on for 5 or 6 weeks, and that is that I feel more and more confident in Ohio State by the week and less confident, through much of that, the same level of confidence in Michigan, because I couldn't really grade their performance because they were just blowing bad teams out.
No, that's pretty similar to how I feel. Like I felt like 5 or 6 weeks, I felt like Michigan was clearly a better team.
Yeah.
And it might have been just that they were playing weaker competition and they were blowing them out. But Ohio State seems to have gotten some sort of identity. Like they seem to have found themselves a little bit offensively.
Yeah.
And defensively as well. They know what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sets up as an amazing matchup next week. So I think these are clearly 2 of the top 4 teams in the country, and probably one of them will get left out of the playoffs, which is, I guess, a shame, but whatever. It just makes the game next week much more interesting. So I set this up. So, like, I'm guessing you think Florida State will probably cruise through the ACC championship game, right? Do you think Florida or Louisville pose much of a challenge to them?
Oh, I think they could. Sure.
You really do?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. But I'm guessing you presume that they'll probably get through those, right?
I would say, let's say Jordan Travis, we just know that he's hurt. I don't know. I'm not going to presume anything. But let's say he plays. Let's say tonight did not happen. I would give Louisville a little bit better of a chance to win that game than Florida. But I would give both of them 15 to 30% chances of winning that game. I think they have a decent chance. Florida State's, they're a really good team.
Yeah.
But
you got vulnerability.
Boston College, Duke, some other teams in spurts, even Pitt played with them pretty well.
Absolutely. And I mean, with Washington beating Oregon State tonight, the Pac-12 champions going to have one loss, most likely. I mean, unless Oregon loses Oregon State next week and then beats Washington the next week. Correct? I mean, like, we're probably counting on this as a quarterfinal game.
So you're saying that you have no confidence in Washington being undefeated?
But no, if Washington's undefeated, they're going to take up that.
Sure.
So I think it's going to be Big Ten, SEC, Florida State, and then if Washington they take that last spot for sure, right?
Yeah, they're in front of Texas, and they're going to play a better team in the championship game than Texas will. Yes.
Right. So I mean, you can't count on the dominoes to fall for both teams to get in to the playoffs this season. I don't think. I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, it's just way too much has to happen.
Yeah. So I mean, everything's coming down to next week, and I'm feeling more and more confident in my Buckeyes to get it done. I mean, they've improved like every week through the year. I feel this whole season.
Yeah, I agree. They have.
It's been a steady process, and if they don't win, I mean, I still feel very confident in Ryan Day as the head coach. I think he's. I don't feel there should be any pressure under to him to his job security at all at this point. I mean, I think he's the right guy for the job at this moment.
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. Anyone that knows football and can evaluate is not concerned with Ryan Day. That's just fans talking.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah. So, all right. Thanks, Mark, for having me.
All right, Sean. Have a good night.
Care.
Appreciate it.
Everyone. Bye.
Yeah, SEC football. We've got the rankings coming out on Sunday. All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We got Harbaugh the King.
Hey, what's up, Mark?
Hey, what's going on?
Can you hear me all right?
I got you.
Man, that's just a troll. I'm gonna be the most objective Michigan fan you've ever heard, despite the oxymoron I just put on the screen. So I think, let's see if you agree with this statement. Michigan has more question marks at this point in the season, and Ohio State has less.
I didn't think I would agree with that a few weeks ago or at any time in the season, but yes, because I didn't have any questions most of the season about Michigan, and I had quarterback, offensive line, and at the beginning of the season, secondary questions about Ohio State. But yeah, I generally agree with that. Although I think it's debatable, but I would say that I'm pretty sure of who Ohio State is and how they're going to play.
Yeah, so the way I would look at this, man, is I think Ohio State going in this game has more momentum in terms of how they've been trending. I know Michigan beat Penn State on the road, but this is how I'm looking at it, right? The offensive line, mainly Carson Barnhart, there's an issue there. One. Two, I don't know if this has been addressed. JJ McCarthy has a hurt knee right now. I don't know if you've actually heard about this. He has a hurt knee. He was icing his knee after the game. He's got a significant limp. And I don't know if anyone's mentioned that yet, but I think that's a huge factor. And the Sherrone Moore thing, I think the evidence is there. With Jim Harbaugh, they averaged 45 points per game. Without Jim Harbaugh, they averaged 30 points per game. If you just look at how the offense with Harbaugh and without Harbaugh on the sideline, it's clear as day. It's clear as day.
Well, I'm not saying that there's not something to that, but they've played better teams, obviously Penn State in particular.
Yeah, but then they also have the 3 non-conference games as part of those 5 games.
Oh, you're throwing the 3-9. Yeah, I got you.
I mean, the most they've scored without Harbaugh is 31 points. With Harbaugh in Big Ten competition, now mind you, it's not the best competition. They average 45 points a game, and we're talking 49, 52, 52, another 40 burger in there. It's just, if you know football really well, if you just watch the game, it's hard not to notice the difference.
Well, I got to say that going into this game today, I didn't know how the team was dealing with all the controversy and all that. And I was just thinking that I'm going to predict this game as I normally would. And I thought that they would beat Maryland. Not that Maryland's certainly they get, talent in the secondary. They've got wide receivers. They've got a quarterback and all that. We pretty much know who they are too. But I thought Michigan was going to win that game. Like I didn't give that point spread much of a thought. I thought Michigan was going to win by, 21 to 24 points.
Yeah, and mind you, well, I'll say a couple things here. It was a funky game in the aspect of Roman Wilson got knocked out of the game early. He's clearly we're not Ohio State. We don't have, we can't just reload the wide receiver position if someone goes down. He's clearly the best wide receiver. Yep. So when he goes down, it's a drop off. So he leaves the game. I think it was after the second drive.
Yep.
So he leaves the game. JJ, he's just not. He clearly is not playing at the level he can play right now. And then on top of that, the O-line was pass protecting well, and we already had to put a backup left tackle in, and then he got hurt, and then Carson Barnhart went to left tackle, and that's a disaster. I mean, there's a bunch of things going on in this game. And then you had the drive right before half where they should have got points. Mm-hmm. They should have got points on that, but JJ's, I don't know what he's doing. He's staring down terrible. Did you see that play?
Oh, yeah.
Would you agree that was a terrible play by JJ?
Yeah, there was too much traffic. Although the
And
guy
just kind
that
of
intercepted it did make a heck of a play. He jumped. Maybe JJ just, even without that guy there were like two secondary players kind of converging on the receiver anyway. But he definitely thought, unless he just didn't see that guy, but I think he did and just thought he could throw it over him.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. And I just think it was a bad decision. One, he stared down the receiver.
Yeah.
He didn't even look any other way. And you got three bodies in the vicinity, and you're trying, and that's not an easy throw. I mean, you're talking about the back of the end zone. You got to put it over three dudes. Like, I don't know. I think if anything's affecting Harbaugh not being there the most, I think it's JJ. And that's a negative on JJ. You could say that's mental weakness, whatever. But I think it's affecting him the most, not having Harbaugh on the sideline more than any other aspect of the game. There's a couple other things, but what do you think about that? Because I think it's affecting JJ more than anybody.
Well, Harbaugh is a quarterback, and he knows what quarterbacks go through and how they think. And, he's been there with JJ all the way through. Certainly, that's the guy that recruited him, signed him, and, the guy that selected him, meaning in the competition with McNamara. And I think sometimes we look at these games a little bit too much like video games and not like they're human beings. And JJ McCarthy's 20 years old. So I would never argue with what you just said. Can't.
Yeah, it's just the body language. I don't know. It's just hard not to notice. I mean, and then you had that play action pass. There was multiple times where they could have really put this game away. Multiple times. I mean, they were up
talking
23.
about the play action right after they got a punt. They were at midfield. They run a hard play action, and Cornelius Johnson was wide open. Yeah, he needed to lay it out there, and he threw a dart about 3 feet behind him. Yeah.
Yeah, all you have to do is loft it up.
Yeah.
You don't have to, why? I mean, there was they're up 23-3. They have a chance to go up multiple scores at that point. I mean, it was just a funky game overall. Even if you look at the yardage Maryland had, they had their second fewest yardage of the season. I mean, they only had 260 some yards total offense.
Yeah, when I cut a video after it and I went through the stats after having watched the game, I was a little surprised that they only had 266. Well, obviously they couldn't run it at all. I just thought Talia threw for a lot more than that, but he was only at 247. But
which is
you're right. They just came in spurts, and obviously they didn't do anything for almost the entire first half.
And if it's not for the defense scoring 11 points, they lose the game. I mean, the offense only had 20 points.
Yeah.
So, Kenneth Grant might be I think he's a top 10 pick when it's all said and done. That dude is a freak.
Yeah, he set up a blocked punt with he set up that, and then he also set up the safety. With the TFL and a sack, yeah,
he's like unblockable, and then he runs like a 4.5. I mean, he's just a freak. And then Ohio State, man, they're looking good, man. Here's what I like about. Well, I don't want to say I like because it's Ohio State, but what I think they're doing good, an adjustment they've made in the run game is those wide receiver jet sweeps.
Yeah,
a lot of misdirection. Because, for the bulk of the season, they try to just, hard nose, just hand it off. And then they start doing those, we're going to fake it to Henderson, but we're really going to give it to Emeka, or we're going to give it to Marvin Harrison. And I think it's a great wrinkle, and it's really helped them open up things in the run game.
Well, if you recall, they did that with Ibuka a lot last year, and then they also started off this season doing it. And actually, one of the worst play calls I think they had the entire season was trying to do that on 4th and about a half yard against Notre Dame.
Oh, that's right.
And then Ibuka got hurt, and so he was the guy that they really did that with. So once he got hurt, they stopped doing it. So they must feel comfortable that he's back at it, and
Yeah,
they
and I
can
think
get back to that.
what's helped too is Henderson. He's hitting his stride right now, so I think he's diverting a lot of attention. So when they do those fakes, they all go towards where Henderson's going, and then it leaves that room
Yep.
for the sweep that's going on. I don't know, man. I'm not feeling as confident going in this game. I don't know how I feel, man. I was, as you know, I've been super confident all year, you know, but with everything going on, I feel the play has digressed. I feel Sharon Moore. I think I like him as a coach, but he's conservative to the point where it just worries me, and I think it affects JJ.
Yeah.
If I wasn't a Michigan fan, I would say I would pick blank blank because I'm not going to say I would pick them, but you get what I'm trying to say here.
Well, if
You know what I'm saying?
sure, I totally get it. I understand what a conflict that is, because 2 years ago, I got to tell you, obviously I had reason to be supremely confident because Ohio State hadn't lost to Michigan in forever, and they had, they were rolling toward another Big Ten championship and all that. But I just had this feeling, and then it was punctuated when I remember one of my kids sent me a text at like midnight the night before, and it showed the forecast in Ann Arbor for snow, and I just had this bad feeling.
Oh
two,
yeah.
2 years ago. Yeah,
What is the weather for that game? Have
it's a
they?
great
I
question.
mean, it's only 7 days out, right?
Yeah, I'll give it a look. We'll see.
Now they're never 100%, but
Yeah, I was just saying because somebody mentioned in the chat, what's the difference between Ann Arbor and Columbus? And
oh,
if
there's a
you,
difference.
yeah, if you live in Hawaii or something, there's probably no difference to you. But I was noting that, I got a pretty good log in my brain about what the conditions have been for all these games. And it seems like every time they play in Columbus, it's like a 58-degree day. And it seems like every time they play in Michigan, it's like feels like it's about winter time.
Well, people who've never been to the north just assume it's all the same up there. Like, when you go up to the north, everything's just super cold.
Yeah.
But it's still different. I
Like
mean,
when we started talking about the 12-team playoff and northern teams hosting games in December, even if you look at Columbus the second week of December, I've looked this up a number of times, the average temperature, not that it can't be cold. You can hit a cold spot, obviously, anytime after like October, but the average temperature in Columbus, like the second week of December, is still like in the low 50s. Like it's not
yeah.
that big a deal.
Yeah, I just saw the weather. They're saying it's gonna rain, but I mean it's 7 days out, so who knows?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so yeah, that's what it's showing right now. If that's accurate, let's see, Weather Channel. I think that's showing me actually yesterday or today's weather. Next Saturday. Where's the crap? Where's the Oh, yeah, that's going to be the 25th. It's showing cloudy and 42. It's like a 20% chance of rain.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's more built to play in that kind of weather this year than the past
Yeah.
2 years. So I'm not sure it's as much of a factor. Yeah, man, that's pretty much all I got. Like I said, I came out with a lot more concerns, especially after this game, and I just don't like. One thing I got one pet peeve about Michigan fans real quick. I'm a Michigan fan, obviously, but one pet peeve I got, and this is probably all fans, is when you start being objective or criticizing things, they'll be like, or like, for example, a fan was like, Michigan's 5-0 without Harbaugh this year. I'm like, yeah, they're 5-0 without Harbaugh this year, but they could be 5-0 and not be playing as well.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And like, that's just a pet peeve of mine, man. Both things could be true.
Sure.
They could be trending in a different, not playing their best ball when they should be playing their best ball, even though they're winning. So,
Yeah. If you want to take that stance, you might as well be talking like Iowa and Kirk Ferentz talks every week when he says defends his offense by saying we won the game. Well, you can win the game and your offense can suck at the same time. And obviously that's the case most games at Iowa. That doesn't mean their offense doesn't suck and shouldn't be fixed.
Yeah, so next week, man, I'm hoping we get that dub, man. I'm just not as confident as I've been all year. So
no, well, I appreciate you being objective and being fair about it, and you always are.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you. I understand. I'm not going to say I'm like super, super confident, but I'm slightly more than 50-50 confident. Like I'm like 60-40 confident. And the home field advantage means something, but history shows in this series it's not a huge factor.
No, it's not. I mean, it definitely helps. I think here's where I think it would help the most is the O-line for Michigan. They had to go on a silent count like they did at Penn State. They could take advantage of that more. I feel like that would help Michigan a lot because Carson Barnhart, they're gonna pick on Carson Barnhart, man. They might load that side up, and that's my biggest worry of this game is how they attack Carson Barnhart. I'll leave it at that.
I'm with you, man.
All right, man. Well, you have a good night.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. So you can see right there, we're going to do everything we can to cover this game and all of college football this week. But remember, it's a little different this week. Most of you will be spending Thursday, Thanksgiving with your family. I will as well. But we'll probably pop on, let's see, Thursday night after the Egg Bowl. We'll do that. Let me give it a look for this week, and maybe we'll release a schedule is what we'll do so everybody knows what we're going to do. But I'm going to reach out to as many Michigan people, as many Ohio State media as I can. We'll do as many live streams. I'm going to do a rundown that I was requested of doing a couple weeks ago. And actually, I've done this a number of times in the past anyway, where I'm going to go through all the common opponents for Ohio State and Michigan. So keep in mind that that's 5 teams in the Big Ten East plus Purdue and Minnesota. So that's 7 common opponents. And I got to think with Michigan's subpar performance today that evens it out, because up until today, Michigan had more dominant opponents or dominant performances slightly, not by a large margin, because look at it. Michigan blew out Michigan State 49-0. Game wasn't even close, completely destroyed them. Ohio State didn't stretch it out to 49-0, but they beat them 38-3, and it was 35-3 at half. They basically just mailed it in the second half, and so did Michigan. So you got that game where Michigan beat Michigan State by 49. Ohio State beat them by 35. You've got the Rutgers game. Certainly that goes in Michigan's favor, although they did play at home. They beat Rutgers by 24. Really the turning point in that game in terms of it making it a Michigan runaway was 17-7 and Rutgers was driving. Wasn't like they were deep in the red zone or anything, but they were around the Michigan 35 or 40 through a screen pass that Mike Sanders still made an outstanding play on, much like he did today twice on Talia. Made outstanding breaks on the ball on one occasion, and then the other one he just sized it up down the left sideline to make 2 interceptions. But Sanders still had a pick on a screen pass that broke the game open, and Michigan won 31-7. Of course, when Ohio State went to Piscataway, they were in a dogfight for close to 3 quarters, and then they made a game-changing play near the end zone on a pick six, 93 yards by Jordan Hancock, broke it open, and really then started to cut loose Travion Henderson. He had a 65-yard reception, and Buckeyes won by 19. Michigan won by 24. Then you had of course, the Maryland game that Michigan struggled in today, had a big 20-point lead, almost blew it, never relinquished the lead, but still it became a close game at 29-24. They win by 7. Buckeyes trailed Maryland 10-0, and then they got a near pick six from Josh Proctor. I don't think he took it into the end zone, but it took it down inside like the 10-yard line. Buckeyes scored, and then they just broke Maryland from there. They scored the final 30 points of the game, won 37-17. So they had an easier time with Maryland, although it took a half to get there. The Indiana game, Indiana scored on Michigan quick, and they actually could have scored another touchdown. They had 2 really nice drives on Michigan with some big plays. But then once Michigan scored, they just completely blasted Indiana 52-7, where the Buckeyes had a struggle with Michigan first game of the season and one going away once they had control of the game defensively, but the offense looked awful. That was, of course, Kyle McCord's first start, 23-3. Then you've got the Minnesota game. They both just ran right over Minnesota, the Buckeyes today, and Michigan 52-10 about 6 or 7 weeks ago. The Purdue game, those were pretty similar efforts as well. Ohio State should have given up a opening field goal, but it was missed. And then Ohio State just completely annihilated Purdue after that. They led 41-0 at one point. They cruised home 41-7. Michigan pretty much the same way. They didn't give up a touchdown until 20 seconds left in the game and beat Purdue. So we'll size all that up. And of course, the Penn State game is the most meaningful because they were both 4-quarter games that both Ohio State and Michigan were clearly the better team against Penn State. And sure, there were differences in how the games went, but those are about as carbon copy as any 2 games you're going to find against good teams to compare 2 good teams. Sean, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the call tonight. And thank you for the contribution. Sean says, keep up the good work, Mark. Love this community. I do as well. And so thank you, everyone out there, in whatever ways you contribute. And there's a ton of different ways to do that. So you can at least hit the like button. So please do that. Subscribe here, the Voice of College Football. So we get all sorts of statistics and analytics and metrics from YouTube. And one that is pretty common to YouTube channels, but we should do better than this, is that about 65 or 70% of the people that watch the videos aren't subscribed. So even though we've got 43,000 subscribers, that could be like 70,000 tomorrow if the people that watch the videos would subscribe. So please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't even mean that YouTube's going to feed my videos to you. They won't. YouTube feeds you the videos that you watch. So if you're always watching, gardening videos, then they're going to send you gardening videos, even if you don't subscribe to those people. But a subscriber count is important. So please subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. We appreciate that. What you're seeing on the screen right there is the merchandise that we've got available. So if you go to Top Quality, I will leave the link in the chat. Let me do that. And just check it out. And actually, if you're a Michigan fan, get this, Michigan fans. Listen to this. We've got specialty Voice of College Football Michigan gear, and we don't even have Ohio State gear. How about that? We've got, let's see. Let me find it here. See where it says Voice of College Football, the drop down. We've got Michigan, Miami, USC, Oklahoma, Iowa, West Virginia. There we go. Michigan football at the Voice of College Football. There we go. See that young lady right there with the women's Razorback Michigan Voice of College Football tank top? We had to pay her a fortune. She's a top model that we had to pay for that. Look at the Michigan Shaker pint glass. Look at that fine look right there. Look at this gentleman sporting the white glossy Voice of College Football Michigan mug. There it is. All right, so we've got some Michigan specialty items right there. So check them out. And again, right here at the Voice of College Football. So thank you so much for all your support, everyone. Not necessarily anyone calling right now. So we will do our top 25 that actually makes sense. As soon as I take care of our leaves in the yard, we will take care of that sometime tomorrow, because the leaf pickup is on Monday. So got to check that out and deal with that tomorrow. Very good. By the way, I'm not going to say who I'm saying this to, but sometimes people leave very asinine comments now, I'm not even talking about football. I'm not talking about football because, yes, obviously, tons of people leave asinine comments concerning football in the chat and in my comments section. But I'm even like, if you like another channel, but like I make this comment to probably 5 people a week. I would, not even that many. Maybe once or twice a week at the most, where people will let me know that they don't like my videos, or they don't like me, or they don't like, and you know what my response is to them? Don't watch. Leave. Bye. Like, we don't care. Bye. Like I don't get that. Like, why are you taking the time to tell me that you don't like my videos? Don't watch. Please leave. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I don't go around commenting to YouTube channels I don't like and telling them that I don't like their channels. Like, don't watch. We don't want you here. Bye. All right. Michael says, where are the jackets that you're wearing? I love this jacket. You guys can probably tell that I wear this all the time. I wear it like out all the time. The red one I've been wearing that on some videos, but I'm not, even though red's my favorite color, I don't like wear that for a jacket. Not that I think that's a bad look or anything, but just not for me. I usually wear dark clothes for whatever reason. Let's see here, Michael. Let me see if we can find that. It's got to be right under the main page there. I don't really know how to look it up per se. We got a long sleeve tee. Let's see. We got a couple pages here. If I can't find it, well, I can't find it. So we'll have to ask our buddy Joey. He set this all up. So that's a good question there, Michael. I don't know where you find the top 25 that actually makes sense jacket. I don't know. Is that? No, I don't see it anywhere. I will ask Joey that. That's a great question, Michael. Let me go find that. We've got the shaker pint, the top 25 that actually makes sense. We've got that there. Got a couple like slogans that I thought about putting on. You guys will have to tell me. I may send this out in a poll, and you guys can tell me which one you like better. Maybe one is going to say, we'll put this on a t-shirt or a jacket, and it would say, because somebody mentioned to me that I had said this a few times, and they thought it was a decent line for kind of a tagline. You can be a fan, just don't be a dumb fan. I thought about that one. Then we also thought about, what was the other one? What was the other one? It had something to do with, I don't remember. Okay. Keep chopping. Appreciate that. Again, it's not a perfect ranking. I never stated that. It's just do my best to, and I don't even do it the way I would like to do it. We will do so many things better at some point in all of this. And yes, Nick, I will drop the link here. We will take care of that for you. If you'd like to join the show, the link is in the description section of the video, by the way, but it's in the chat right now. And I saw somebody mention in the chat about USC. Yeah, USC. My goodness. Can you imagine? And I've got to give it up for our Michigan guy that just called in, because I remember him saying, a couple months ago that USC was headed to a 7-5 season. So if you're listening, Michigan man, I do remember that because he used to get in fights with our guy Tim Prangley about Michigan or about USC's record. And I got to admit, he kept saying this team's headed toward 4 or 5 losses, and now USC. I don't know. I was thinking about cutting a video tomorrow, really looking at this USC football team and the football program because they are losing, of course, arguably the best player in the country going into next season. And do I think USC is going to fall apart? And do I think that Lincoln Riley is not a good coach? Absolutely. I think he's a good coach. I think he's got some blind spots, and I think he really needs to fix the defense. And I think his team needs to get much more physical. They are headed to the Big Ten. They are headed to the Big Ten. And if there aren't immediate upgrades with that football program, they are going to get their teeth kicked in. All right. Christopher's here. Christopher, what's going on tonight?
How are you, Mark?
I am doing just fine. How are you?
Good. I was just going to ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Of course.
And it's not necessarily meant to make you, you have a right to everybody does, and this is your show, and I don't want to encroach upon, your opinion and all that. But one person, I guess, kind of referenced it a little bit. Jackson, whatever you call him. There was a win, I guess, today by New Mexico. I didn't catch it, to be honest with you. I wasn't. I saw the result. I don't know whether it was just, sometimes those scores don't really show exactly what. But they beat Auburn, I think, pretty well.
Yes.
That's a New Mexico State team, I think, that's won several close games, I think. And then one, was it Western Kentucky? I think they beat them. Anyway, and so I don't know how much, it really matters. In all fairness, I think, you catch a team maybe on an off week. I mean, you can win it, you can beat them. But the question I have, though, and again, this isn't necessarily meant to make you look like you're not smart, because I know you're smart. But, the division, at least from the way I've been able to figure it out, you can weigh that into consideration, but it's 2-1. In other words, if you're completely fair, and I'm not even going to say you're not, but if you're completely fair, really, with a top 25 or a top whatever you want to make it, top 75, whatever, you should have probably a fair number of G5s represented, just because they're good enough, I think, at times. Like I said, like maybe it's the extreme case, maybe where the team actually meets the challenge head on. I don't know that this example with Auburn's the best one, because I personally don't know how good Auburn is, and I don't know. It's not like you're playing Alabama and maybe the best Alabama. You're playing maybe a fair Auburn team and maybe capitalizing on maybe them not taking you seriously, but New Mexico State. But I would think that you'd have some teams represented in your top 25, and as best as I could tell, you didn't have any. And I just kind of wonder how fair that is to any team, really. Do you have a justification for it? You said something about, was it Appalachian State? You said that they weren't a good team, but they challenged North Carolina. I mean, almost beat them.
So
is that not here?
Yeah. I will say that I admit, at least for me, unless somebody can come up with some kind of great formula that I think is valid,
Right.
I believe it's difficult to make a comparison between G5 teams and Power 5 teams because, for obvious reasons, because there's just not a scheduling comparison that's near equitable. So it's just difficult for me to say, okay, at what point? So if we fast forward to the final, let's say AP top 25, and if we go to any of the AP final top 25s over the past 20, 30 years, you will see, as you well know, kind of like a cutoff point that if you finish 9-4 and you're a Power 5 team, you're going to be ranked in the top 25 90% of the time.
Okay.
And if you're 8-5, you might be, but usually not. That's kind of the cutoff point after the bowl games. 9-4 will get you ranked. 8-5, probably not, unless you're an SEC team that played just a brutal schedule and you had certain wins and losses that were impressive to the pollsters.
Okay.
So how do you equate a group of 5 schedule against that, or a group of 5 record? That's just difficult for me
Okay.
to do. So I at least admit that I'm not stating that I've got the perfect approach to it. I just think that there are enough examples. So if we went through all the group of 5 results against the Power 5,
Yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot of wins. I understand that.
yeah, there won't be a whole lot of wins. And also there's a ton of losses by the very top group of 5 teams against not very good Power 5 teams. So for example, like Toledo,
Yeah,
I don't know what they did today, but they came into today at 9-1.
they beat Bowling Green.
Okay, so they're 10-1 now. And you probably remember who they lost to.
Illinois.
Yeah, they lost to Illinois. Now they played them really well. It was a really good game. But
Right.
still, you're taking a 10-1 group of 5 team, and they lost to a 5-6 Power 5 team.
You're right. Yeah, I
And
understand
that's
that.
pretty typical. I wouldn't just give that, build a narrative around one game. I'm not trying to do that, but that's just an example of that happening a lot.
Okay. Well, I mean, and in all fairness, I mean, you know, I think, for example, we probably talked too much about it, I guess. I was very disappointed with, I was hoping Texas Christian, at the very least, I thought, well, maybe they'll make it close. I didn't really expect them to beat Georgia, but, you know, when that something like that happens, I think it kind of, even though I know they weren't in group of 5, but, you know, they're not necessarily the first team you think of that might challenge for a title. And so when they didn't play well against Georgia for whatever reason, you know, that makes it hard to want to maybe level it out to where it's like, so I can maybe even understand where you're coming from on the way you go about it. But for example, today I noticed, I didn't see the game, so I'm just kind of making it looked like the team that was at Alabama or somebody, Florida State was playing, actually gave them for a quarter, and I don't even know how long it was, but and then at the final quarter or whatever, I think Florida State, you know, they won really easily, but that's only the, you know, I don't know if that really is representative of the way that other team played, or, I mean, I'm not real big on this margin of victory thing because I mean, yeah, I think it's relevant. I mean, I think if Georgia can beat somebody 65-7, I mean, that's, you know, how much worse do you have to beat them before it becomes, you know, but I don't know. I just, I have an objection just for the fact I don't know that having a game after this, because I think all the bowl games personally, I don't know that we need another game to make sure. It's almost like to double check to make sure that we have the right teams or whatever. But that's just my opinion. But I kind of think that the national championship should have been, I've already said this and it's kind of like I'm repeating myself, but I don't really understand why we needed 2 title games, why we needed one with Georgia and Ohio State. You know, to me, it's like, if you can put the 2 best teams together and it's not really that big of a controversy, I don't understand why we can't just do that. And
Well,
still
there's a
don't
lot
really
of reasons.
well, I don't
I
know.
think we've covered this ground before, Chris,
Well,
but
Mark, I mean,
there's a lot of reasons. Number one is people want to see football. So they would like to see the best teams in the country play and not just have somebody say, you're number 1 and you're number 2, play. They would like to see more football among really good football teams. That's one reason. Number 2, let me finish, please.
Okay.
Number 2 is that those games generate what's called money.
Okay.
And so it's a business, therefore. And then number 3, who is this magical individual that's going to tell us who the 2 best teams in the country are?
I'm not saying there is a magical individual that, I mean, you could go by what I do. I mean, I've already tried to explain it to you, but it doesn't mean I'm necessarily right about it. I guess the point I'm trying to make, Mark, is adding more games. It's like, yeah, at some point, it's kind of like diminishing return, I guess, at some point. I don't know. Are these title games? I mean, I'm not saying that the playoffs aren't, they probably do make money and they probably are. But these title games to me some of them are, the one between Alabama and Clemson, the one that was like in SoFi Stadium or wherever it was, I don't even remember. That was like almost embarrassing to watch it, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe you don't feel the same way. I mean, Alabama, I think they were without their offensive coordinator. I think he was gone. But, you know, yeah, I guess we needed the game to find out for sure if Clemson could beat Alabama. But when Alabama rolled over on them, I mean, it's like nobody really wants to watch that. At least I don't. But,
So,
you know,
I know we've talked enough, Chris, to know that you have some level of knowledge and attachment to the NFL.
some level.
Yeah, you've watched the NFL through the years and so forth. So if there's a blowout in the Super Bowl, does that invalidate the Super Bowl and say, we can't predict if the games are going to be good games or not good games, to say, you know what, we don't need to play that game because it's not going to be a good game?
Well, that's not exactly the point I'm making, but my point, I guess the point I'm trying to make, and it may not make sense to you, I don't have an issue really with the way they put the teams together, to be honest with you. If they want to put Ohio State and Georgia together, let them do it. I don't know that it really proved anything. It didn't really prove. Yeah, I know Ohio State almost beat them. I mean, it proved that they could, I guess it proved, if nothing else, it proved they belong there. Sure. But it didn't really, unless you can actually get it done. And I'm not trying to take anything from Ohio State, if you want to know the truth. I think the fact that they were able to challenge Georgia, I think, was amazing. But, and they probably should have beaten them. I'll even go take
we weren't going to know, though, if they could challenge them unless they actually played a game.
Well, no, but I guess the point I'm making, though, I guess if you have to, and I'm not saying we necessarily have to in every circumstance, but if in a circumstance like that where we kind of, at the very least, maybe have an idea of whether Michigan or even you throw Texas Christian in there too, I think most people, you can say I'm nuts about it or what, but I think most people might agree with me that maybe just putting Michigan and Georgia together might be as easy a way to do it as, I think at some point, how do you know that these players really want to play another game? They've already played 12 games, a championship game. Now they're in a semifinal. Maybe, I don't know. I can't speak for any one of them. Maybe at that point they're saying, hey, that's all we want. I'm not saying that's the way it is, but not everybody necessarily, I don't know. Not everybody necessarily has the same priorities, I guess, as that somebody else might. They all want to win a national championship. Maybe they do, but it might not be their first priority. I don't know. How do you know that that's what they want?
Then they shouldn't be doing what they're doing.
Well, no, but my point is, Mark, I don't know that there's one way that makes it. And it's like, oh, well, the other previous years where I guess you could pick a year, it doesn't really matter to me. I sent you some information about it. 2004, I don't know that one way works better than the other. It might have been, maybe we would have known better, I guess, if we could have put Auburn and USC. But, the fact that we didn't necessarily mess anything up just means that we don't really, we can kind of pick our champion. What's so bad about that? I don't quite understand why it's such a, or 1997 or 1991.
So Chris, if you'll allow me, let me sift through a few things and then you tell me if this is accurate, okay?
Sure.
So you brought up the Clemson-Alabama game that they played for the championship. So they played twice, of course, as you well know, in 2015 and in 2016. Then they also played in 2018. So they played 3 times.
4 times. They played in 2017 too.
Yeah, in the playoff. Yeah, but they played 3 times in the championship game. So I believe you are referring to the 2018 game because that was the game which Clemson beat them by 4 touchdowns, correct?
Well, that was the one that I thought was kind of painful to watch.
Yes, that they played in Palo Alto. Okay, both of those teams went undefeated and were undefeated going into that game. So how do you propose determining a national champion without those 2 teams playing?
Well, that's actually a good point, Mark. But I'm not really proposing anything. I guess the point I'm making is, in that circumstance, it might be a good year where we need maybe another game. You might be right about that, to really know for sure that the right team. But there's also something else that I've tried to explain to you that I don't know that you might not be interested in. I can understand. There's like a rotation, and it's only if you really think that it works, and you might not agree that it works. Well, this year, if my whatever it is, if it works the way it's supposed to, then the national championship game probably should be in the Sugar Bowl this year. So it might mean that, and who I might think actually might be there, and I'm just guessing because I don't really know, but let's just pretend, because I don't know what's going to happen. You know better than I do what's going to happen, but let's just pretend that Alabama and Georgia play in the SEC championship game, and let's just say that Alabama, because they did it once before, they beat Georgia. My guess would be that there's at least a fair chance they might play again in the Sugar Bowl. So, but that's actually okay. I'm okay with that if you want to know the truth. But then at that point, it's like, do we really need another game to, like, if Georgia wins or whoever? I don't really think that we do need another game. That's kind of where I get kind of testy a little bit, because it's like, well, we need to know if they can beat Washington. And it's like, well, why do we need to know if they can beat Washington or I guess Michigan? Or
because that's the whole point to all of this, is to determine the best team.
Well, I know, but I guess my point is, it's like I said, Like, the 1 year, what was it? You can pick the year. That's okay with me. 2004. I used like a proficiency, and they both finished higher enough to be included. Why does it have to be why does it only have to be one team? I mean, maybe you can explain that to me. Why is it that it has to be one team and nobody else? I mean, is that really how it is in the world, that there's always only one team that can claim a title? I mean, to me, that doesn't really make sense to me because, I mean, maybe ideally, sure. But, there's other ways to do it. I mean, playoffs don't always give the best team, in my opinion. I mean, sometimes it does, but not always. Do you think that the year that the Patriots beat the Giants, that was, oh yeah, that definitely proved that the Giants were the best team, even though they lost 6 games or whatever it was? Still, they beat the Patriots. So
yes, I think we all understand in competition, the best team doesn't always win the game every time, but at least they had to go out there and earn that. We can't have teams playing 100 times. So the one time that they were scheduled to play in a playoff or championship game, the team that gets it done, that game is the champion. That's what people want to see. How do you propose? So I'm guessing that you have determined, for example, last season, Georgia and Michigan could have played in a championship game and nobody else considered because they were the 2 teams in the country that had conference championships and were undefeated. Correct?
Well, I guess if you're asking, you're going to pin me down, that's fine. I mean, yeah, I guess ultimately that would make the most sense to me. Yes. I understand why that might not make the most sense to everybody, but that would make the most sense.
But your proposal would work certain years.
No, I think it would work almost every year. Pick a year to
in
test.
2019,
Sure.
Ohio State, LSU, and Clemson were all undefeated. Who's going to play in the championship game?
Well, no, that's I know that's a tough one to do, but I don't really know, to be honest with you, Mark, because those aren't decisions that I want to make, to be honest with you, because I make the wrong decision, then everybody's going to be mad at me. But I think if I remember correctly, and I might be wrong, if I remember correctly, the 3rd place team in that circumstance was Clemson. So I guess in a way that maybe would make sense to me, I might want to put Ohio State and LSU together. But just because that's what I would want to do doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to, not everybody's going to agree with that. But that might be how I would have done it. I don't know if that helps you or helps. I mean, and it's not because I necessarily think that Ohio State or Clemson or LSU is necessarily better than the other. It's just that I remember they had kind of I don't know what it was. It was like the power rankings they do. And the top 2 teams, I think, were LSU and Ohio State. So, I mean, I'm okay with that. It's like, if that's but I'm also okay with what they did, which wasn't that. Because, I don't know that there's one way to do it that's going to make everybody happy anyway.
Yeah. So you're okay with it, but nobody else is okay with it because we want to see the best teams play to determine a championship. And to have a team that went undefeated, in this case, Clemson in 2019, be given no opportunity to win a championship, people would not be satisfied with that.
I understand that, Mark, but I guess they would have played Oklahoma or somebody, instead. I don't know. I mean,
but not for the championship. They would have just played in a bowl game.
I don't know what bowl game it would have been. Yeah, they would have been in a different game. Yeah, they would have been I guess you could say they were left out, but I don't know if you want to say it was unfair. I mean, they didn't actually. I mean, I guess they barely beat Ohio State, and I think they gave LSU a game. But so I don't know. You can say that what I'm doing is wrong, but. Does Clemson did they really prove that they necessarily belonged in the championship game? I don't know. I'm not going to say they didn't, but and I'm not even saying that that's the right way to do it. I'm just saying that playoff doesn't necessarily fix anything is kind of the way I look at it. You can say I'm stupid for saying that. Does Texas Christian deserve a second chance after losing to Kansas State last year? I mean, I don't really think so, but I guess maybe they almost proved that I was wrong about that, but I wouldn't have included Texas Christian personally. They got beat by Kansas State, but I mean, maybe that's not what it's about. Maybe that's not what it should be about. But and I don't know necessarily that putting Georgia and Michigan together necessarily would have made anybody happy, but it would have worked. I mean, that's kind of my point. Is it would have worked all right. So,
well, Chris, I think we've come to the point in the phone call where we're just kind of going around in circles.
No, not really. I mean, I guess my point is no, Mark. There's one last thing.
Yes, one last thing. Give it to me.
It might be illegal. The thing that they're doing is actually, what?
Illegal.
Yeah. You know what double jeopardy is, don't
A
you?
crime now. Yes, I understand what that is.
Being tried twice for that's illegal in the court of law. All right. LSU, we'll use 2019. That's fine. Why should they have to play 2 national championship games to win a national championship? Any of those teams?
You don't have to win 2 national championships. You only have to win 1 national championship. The other is called just a regular season game.
No, the playoffs are you have to win 2. To win 1, you have to win 2. I don't know that that's not
You have
double
to win
jeopardy.
2 against different opponents, just like you do in any other sport. The NBA, Major League Baseball, the NFL.
Well, if the game that they're in isn't a title game, then maybe you're right. But if it's an actual title game, I'm not so sure that it isn't. And having them have to play 2 games, I'm not sure if it's the same as double jeopardy, but if it isn't, it's pretty close. Have to win 2 championship games to win 1 title? I mean,
yes, you do not have to win 2 championship games.
Well, I think you do. Bowl games are championship games.
No, you don't.
No, I think you
Bowl
do.
games are not championships.
They always were before now.
This is what is the conclusion to this phone call is that I'm exhausted right now.
Well, just think about it, Mark. I mean, if you win the Fiesta Bowl, that's a championship.
Are you uncaring of me being exhausted right now?
I'm just saying that not everybody might want the same thing you do. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, I understand that. I'm fully understanding of that. Not everyone wants the same thing.
I could be completely wrong about that. But I mean, maybe Texas Christian didn't care if they played for a championship. Maybe they were happy being in the Fiesta Bowl. How do you know they wanted to play in the national? Did you ask them? Maybe they just said, "Hey, we really don't care if we play for the national championship."
The players didn't quit. They actually went out there and played.
Some people said they did quit.
All right, Chris. Well, I appreciate the call.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Have a good night. All right. Yes, that is mentally taxing after a while. All right. Let's bring Nick in here. Maybe we can pull this back together. Nick, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you, Mark?
I am doing just fine. What's up?
I wanted to double check. I can't remember if you said that you agree with the 12-team playoff or if you wanted it expanded further.
I do not agree with buys.
Okay. So you would go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, yeah, I'm surprised if that, not to take a shot, but if that previous caller is who I thought it was from listening for a few years now, I'm surprised he didn't call up and make an argument how the results of this year were verification for why BYU should have added a few more national championships 45 years ago.
Yeah. Well, he tends to, justify certain results and championships based on games that were played different years.
Yeah, I really can't follow too far with some of that stuff. But yeah, what were your thoughts on the Oregon State Washington game? I caught the beginning of the game and I kind of missed the middle of the game. All of a sudden Washington was up big, and then it looked like I caught the end of the game when it was 22-20. So it looked like Oregon State made somewhat of a comeback.
Yeah, they most definitely did. They had their chances. They probably the turning point in the game to keep them in the game was that they were down 22-10 at half. And DJ Uiagalelei threw a interception to start the second half deep in his own end, but the Oregon State defense held, and Washington missed a field goal, and then Oregon State was able to kind of creep back into the game. But his inconsistent quarterbacking and poor decisions, I think, were the biggest factor in the game. I credit Washington with going to a difficult place to play and winning an ugly game. It was an entertaining game. It was a hard-fought game. It was kind of fun to watch guys sliding all over the place. But Oregon State certainly ran the ball. I don't want to say at will, but close to it. They ran effectively, but just no effective passing game. And they held Michael Penix to probably his worst statistical game of the season. I don't think there's any question his worst statistical game of the year. He was 13 for 28. But Washington got it done.
Yeah, how do you feel about a Washington-Oregon rematch?
I think Oregon's playing decidedly better football. I think they're a better team.
Just because of both sides of the ball, probably feel like the defense is a little bit better, I'm assuming.
I think that the only place that Washington is a better team is passing, and that's arguable. I think Oregon's not decidedly or substantially better in everything else. It should be another really good game, and obviously Washington beat them head to head, but I do think that Oregon's better.
Yeah.
Better defense, better running game.
I wouldn't want to play Oregon. Maybe outside of Georgia. I think Georgia kind of probably scoffing at Oregon a little bit. At least the players in that locker room probably are, based on what they did to them a couple years ago. Although Oregon's different this year, but still. So are we lining up for I kind of feel like we're just headed down the inevitable path of Georgia three-peating with the way that Carson Beck's playing. I know that's not super interesting. Not saying that other teams couldn't give them a fight, but I don't know. I just they're tough. They yeah, I don't know. Your thoughts on that? I just feel like we're headed towards that again.
Yeah, I think that there are, if I was going to order the teams that I think are most capable of beating them, I do think that Georgia's the best team, the most complete team. And then when you put that together with knowing that their head coach knows how to win a championship and they have players on that team, basically all of them have won a national championship, if not two. And so they know what it takes. All of that's a significant advantage. And so they've got the talent, they've got the experience, they've got the poise, the know-how, all of that on their side. But in order of the teams that I think that are capable of beating them, I'd say Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, Oregon, Florida State, Washington. Oh, I missed Texas. I'd throw Texas in there probably after Michigan.
Okay. Yeah, I think yeah, I can't really disagree with that. Anyway, what I didn't catch what happened to Jordan Travis. It sounds like it was kind of nasty.
Yeah, it's a
Is that a
lower
good thing I
leg
didn't catch
injury.
that, I'm assuming?
What's that?
I said it's probably a good thing I didn't see
Yeah, it's
that.
probably a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yep.
guess it was. I did not see the play. Well, you know what? I did see the play, but I only saw it once, so I didn't see any kind of.
Hey, did they show that on the? I mean, I don't know if you were watching this, but like, I've always found it funny in college basketball and college sports. It's like when a serious injury like that happens, because I've seen some leg injuries, like some of the worst.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because everybody knows, like, pretty much live, like it was bad. And then they just keep going. They keep showing the replay while the announcers are saying, "Oh, we can't see this again." And it just, but then the announcers keep commenting on the next replay. And it just like, have you ever noticed that? I've always thought that was kind of weird.
What I've thought is kind of weird is that there are certain injuries in which they've shown it over and over and over and over and over and over, and you see a lower leg go in an opposite direction that it shouldn't, and buckle under, and it looks like, it's a limb made out of tissue paper, that kind of look that just looks wow. But then other times I was just watching a game and I don't remember what this was. I think it was an NFL game. Maybe it was a college game where somebody got hurt badly a few weeks ago. and they didn't show it. They said, we're not going to show it. I know it was a college game because they went back to the studio. I know what it was. It was Louisville, Virginia.
Do you think the reason why you're able to remember that specifically is because that's like more rare for them to like not show it? Because I know I've seen a number of injuries where they just keep doing those damn replays, and the commentators are saying, oh, this is disgusting, this is nasty. And it's like you see it and they slow it down even farther the next replay. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we're not even going to look at that.
Yeah.
It's like they just keep going with it. And I'm like, dude, what I would rather see a replay of is a replay of every odd penalty called. That's one thing I've noticed is like how many times, maybe you're not this way, I'm this way, it's like where there's a flag called or something and for some reason they just don't show. Like I would rather see, I don't know, maybe a separate camera of like the previous play, even if a team's running tempo. For some reason, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't like that. I don't like to see a replay when they don't time it well enough, and then they are still showing the replay while the next play is starting to be run, and then they zoom in and they double box it. I hate that.
Yeah, I would.
It's jarring.
I agree with you on that generally. I'm just saying I wish there was a way. You know how like YouTube TV, you can have like the 4 screens going?
Yes.
I wish there was like a mode, right? Like where you could enter into it. Now, I know that's a lot of work to do, so they're never going to do that. But there's some flags and stuff thrown. But I get it. It's
they have the technology to do that. Shoot, we used to have meetings at ESPN 10, 12 years ago, and they would talk about things that were being explored about, people sitting at home and being able to select, I want to watch this version of the game, press a button. I want to watch this version of the game, press a button, so forth and so on.
Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified too. I really like college basketball, so my analysis on that or explanation, I know you're not into college basketball. I'm really into college basketball, so that's part of the reason why I said that. So basketball is
I'm sure I've watched more college basketball in my lifetime than you have.
No, yeah, I'm not trying to start.
I'm just not currently into it. No, I'm not.
Yeah, no, I was just saying like when I said that, like I'm watching college basketball now, so that probably plays a big part into it. College basketball is a lot different. I mean, you've watched a lot of, like you said, a lot of college basketball before, and they call these stupid ticky-tack fouls, and you're like, wait a second, let me go watch that again. And then they don't show it. Anyway, so, but I'll just say this. As a Michigan fan, I am not confident going into this week. One thing I'm like really hopeful for is that can we just have a quiet week? Like, I don't know what the media is going to drop. I could see, like, first of all, just the leaks, the slow drip. I don't know about you. I'm sure a lot of other people are tired of it. Like, this whole scandal has been going on for, like, I just want to watch football. Like, people have opinions on sign stealing, whatever. Like, I don't care. It's just gotten so toxic at this point. Like, you see, and you go on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, and you have Ohio State fans just saying, oh, every Michigan player knew, not all Ohio State fans, but you have people going crazy and stuff. And I just hope that we have a relatively quiet week for the sake of the rivalry at this point, because I don't know if it could get much more toxic at this point, especially if there's going to be some major news drops. If there's major news, people should be informed and whatnot, but there also needs to be consideration of what time is it, the week of the rivalry. So, but yeah, I'm not confident Michigan's chances. They came in today with Maryland. Ladarius Henderson didn't travel with the team. I don't know if that was due to his starting tackle. I don't know if that was due to injury or not. Then Miles Hinton, the backup tackle, went down with an injury in the game. JJ appears to still be struggling with some ankle issues. Roman Wilson got knocked out of the game. I don't know. It kind of seems to me the momentum that Michigan season is kind of going off the rails here. So I'm not confident at all in the game. If I was an Ohio State fan, the only question I would have is Kyle McCord. But at the same time, it's not like it's his first start. So if I was an Ohio State fan, I would be pretty damn confident, especially considering like you're going up against an interim head coach. So from my perspective, if I'm an Ohio State fan, I find it very difficult to be concerned, especially with Travion Henderson clearly peaking. I don't think there's a path there for Ohio State unless something goes crazy wrong, which it can happen. But
well, I'll say that for all the projections and predictions that I make for the season, of course, many are right and some are wrong. And if Ohio State loses this game to Michigan, then my whole forecast will come unraveled. But to this point, this season has kind of played out the way I forecasted it that way in terms of the way the two teams are playing, in that I said from week one that I thought Michigan was a better team. They were playing better. They had zero question marks. They had certain areas on their team that weren't elite, but they didn't have any question marks. That Ohio State had this list of question marks, but I was projecting that the defense would gel under Jim Knowles, a second year in that defense, that they would figure out, I didn't know if it would be Travion Henderson, but that they had enough talent in that running back room to figure out how to best utilize those guys and who that would be. And that Kyle McCord would just have plenty of time to become a better and better quarterback, and that they would peak near the end of the year. Now, we'll see on Saturday whether that's going to come to fruition. It's been progressing that way, but they have to go out and do it against the best team on their schedule.
yeah, and you said you were going to do kind of a I don't know what you want to call it, synopsis or summary.
Yeah, in the past, I've looked at all their common opponents just to see score differential, rushing yardage, rushing defense, all those things, third down conversion rates.
I just don't think that's going to play. Like, I mean, I get it. I actually kind of think both teams are going to come out pretty concerned, like trying to really run the ball.
Yep.
My gut feeling, and I may be completely off on this, my gut feeling is that both teams are going to come out trying to be tough and just run. I think the game's ultimately going to begin in a slugfest, but I think it's going to turn into Kyle McCord versus JJ McCarthy at the end. Not saying they're going to completely air it out, but I think both defenses are at the point where they're going to be able to hold up enough where it's just going to actually come down to which quarterback is going to be able to make explosive plays down the stretch, though. Not like last year where it was kind of earlier in the first half. But like I said, I could be totally wrong on that. Do you kind of feel that way, or do you feel differently?
Yeah, I do think that both teams want to prove that they're the more physical team and control the line of scrimmage and run the ball. Sure. I don't think that this game's going to swing in any kind of crazy direction one way or the other as some kind of shootout or some kind of defensive lockdown 10-9. I think the game's going to most likely be one in the low 20s and the quarterback that wins this game is probably going to have 0 turnovers or maybe 1 inconsequential turnover, and not going to carve up the other defense for 400 yards, but going to have a pretty reasonable, percentage and yardage total. But that's kind of how I see it playing out. I think it's going to be a close game.
And I think we can safely assume that the loser is done.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Because
so much is going to have to happen.
If you're Michigan, you lose, but you lose at home. So that's not good, even if it's close. I mean, that's not good. And if you're Ohio State and you lose, you lost to an interim head coach. And the committee already said they'll take stuff like that into consideration. So I don't think we're seeing 2 Big Ten teams.
Well, I also think it has more to do with every conference is in play, where in the past there's already been a conference or 2 that eliminated itself with a 2 or 3 loss champion.
Yeah, I should have said that. Both of those things, and I think what you just said is a lot more weighty. But then combine the fact, that Michigan loses, they lost a home game at the end of the season. If Ohio State loses, they lost on the road, but Jim Harbaugh wasn't there. So it's going to be tough. But last question for you here. Do you think that the football gods have just completely ignored getting spit in the face by Iowa's offense and just looked favorably upon the way Iowa's defense has played over the years and just said, you guys deserve to still have success? Because, what are the 9 wins, right? So far, 9-2?
Yes.
I mean, come on. They got we'll just call it a formula.
Yeah, they do have a formula. See, I don't think I think it's funny, and I think it's an aberration, but I don't see it as being as odd or flukish as other people do. Because I think people are so offensive minded that they don't. If Iowa was doing the same thing that they're doing, but from an offensive perspective, people wouldn't think that was crazy. Like if they were winning all these games 42-40 and their defense sucked, people would recognize, oh, their defense sucks, but they wouldn't think that it was some kind of joke.
Oh, they must play in the Big 12. No.
The Big 12 of 5 years ago.
Yeah,
the current Big 12 is pretty much just like every other conference.
But,
so like Iowa, if anything, they're far more sound than 90% of the teams out there, because their defense is so good and their special teams is so good.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Their offense is terrible. Yeah. It is.
And I heard, I didn't watch the game, but Brian Ferentz was getting hugged and everything. And not anything against him personally. I mean, I'm sure his players love him and everything. But it is kind of incredible with Cade McNamara going down. And they've had, I think, quite a few other injuries in that.
Oh, they were playing a 5th-string tight end last week.
Yeah. And they're still gonna. I mean, I know they want to run. Well, I don't know if they want to anymore, but careful what you wish for, Iowa, if you want to run Kirk Ferentz out of town. Because I have a feeling that when he leaves, it's going to get a lot worse for him with their resources. And that's not me being a hater, but I think they could do a lot worse.
Oh, they could do a lot worse. Look at Nebraska, but it's not like they had never won in their history before Kirk Ferentz. They were doing just fine before that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. if not better. So.
But yeah, anyway, I won't keep you any longer. Last quick thing I'll just say. I guess I know we've gotten into a couple heated, or at least on my end, a couple heated kind of yelling matches. I just wanted to say, like, I thought you made a really good point a couple weeks ago, where like a lot of people take their college football team, like people not attacking, but criticizing it as personally. I don't know, that kind of resonated with me a little bit, especially with the whole toxicity going around with the whole Michigan scandal. So it's kind of made me take a little bit of a step back and realize that like college football is supposed to be fun, and it's easy to get caught up into it a little bit too much. So if I ever came at you too hard or was yelling, I'm sorry. So
no, you're good.
But
no, I
anyway,
always enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that was a really good point that you made before, and it's kind of difficult, you know, because it's like fan short for fanatic, but there's so much tribalism in the sport. But it's yeah, sometimes you got to take a step back to realize like it's all just kind of fun. Because the last thing I want to do is you always see those the YouTube videos going viral of those parents at like a flag football game getting in fist fights, and it's just like,
yes,
what are we doing? Like, we don't want to go to that point. So
yeah.
But anyway,
yeah, my kids played sports, and I saw some ugly things that were just so ridiculous. Where you've got like 10-year-old girls, 12-year-old girls playing softball on a field where they could be complete friends with people on the other side, on the other team. Like they don't even think anything of it. And you got parents having fights in the stands. It's so stupid.
And like, yeah. And like, even more recently for me, like I've seen like some of the like craziest comments, and I'm really not on social media that much. I just don't have time to be, but like in the spare time I do, seems like I'm getting notifications of this or that I was following, and I get tagged in it somehow. And I like 99% of the time I go and I will just kind of click on someone's profile of like a comment that like would like, man, I can't believe they said that. They're ridiculous. Like, screw this person. I go click on their profile, and then their description, it's like a bunch of Bible verses and a bunch of other things that are like probably something I would agree with. You know what I mean? And it's like this stupid little comment, like, just triggered me, and I would probably agree with this person on 95% of things in life, unless they're just liars. But I'm not going to go there because, I mean,
well, I said that one time, and I don't know that it came across real well or people took it really well, but I basically said, and it could apply to any rivalry or any groups of fans, but of course, Ohio State and Michigan are prominent. So I just said, you know, imagine that the only difference between these Michigan fans being Michigan fans and you being Ohio State fans is that you grew up where you grew up, and they just happen to grow up across the state line. That's usually the only difference. You could have grown up with those people and actually like them and think that they're really good people.
Yeah, and like the funniest thing is, it's like I think everybody becomes fans of teams in like different ways.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it's not like, so for me, like, just quick side note, the reason why I became a Michigan fan, like growing up, I was born in 1993, and I didn't really like pay attention much to college football. Like 1997, I was only 4 years old. So, but Lloyd Carr, I remember my earliest memories of like actually watching TV and seeing that on the old box TVs and everything. I remember seeing him, and his mannerisms, the way he speaks and everything specifically, is like identical to my grandfather. So like that was the first memory I ever had. He even looks like him. So like that's just kind of what, you know, and living in the region, I grew up in Michigan, so that was on the TV. But it's just kind of funny, like the reason why people become fans, and like here I am, like getting all upset. Your team sucks, and like all this. It's like, no, take a step back, you know, and just It's supposed to be fun. It's sports. And I've played sports and everything, and that's so anyway, but yeah, I just yeah, I guess that's all I had to say. But I just wanted to say that I thought you made a really good point with that a couple weeks ago or a week ago or whatever with people should not take it so personally, because that's only a negative. But anyway, I won't take up any more of your time. Appreciate you for taking my call. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Have a good night. All right. Last call of the night.
Marquez, what's up, buddy?
Well, are you changing my name for some reason?
No.
Okay.
All I know is next Saturday is a day of reckoning, my friend.
Day of reckoning. It could be.
A day of reckoning, Mark. I've never felt this powerful about this game in like a long time.
Powerful
I got to be real with you.
Way?
Well, there's a lot here, Mark. Let's just be fair.
Yes.
What's swirling around? You have two 11-0 teams.
Mm-hmm.
We're playing on their field. They're the favorite. They're going to be the favorite going into the game. They're the two-time defending Big Ten champs. They're the ones that are supposed to beat us by 4 touchdowns. And you know what? Come on, Mark. Your largest fan base has been talking a lot of trash for about 3 to 4 weeks
well, everybody talks like that. Ohio State fans
Mark.
were telling Notre Dame fans that they were going to win by 5 or 6 touchdowns. So every fan base has morons.
Yeah, them more than others, Mark.
I have never seen more ridiculous scores for all the crap that I had to sift through from the Notre Dame side leading into that game. I also saw more ridiculous scores from Ohio State fans than I've ever seen about any game ever. Like everything was 52-10 and all these ridiculous scores. Both years, last year and this year.
You know what, though? They had their quarterback winning the Heisman. I heard their team was a combination of 2019 LSU and 2016 Alabama had a baby earlier in the year. And they were talking so much smack. And you know what, though? I go into next week with a fair amount of confidence, Mark.
Yeah, I have a fair amount of confidence, too.
What do you think?
I have a fair amount of confidence.
What do you think about the way the two teams are trending?
Well, I was just explaining this to, I don't know how many callers tonight, that the season is, I could be completely wrong come Saturday, but up to this point, this is all played out pretty much the way I predicted it to.
Okay. You had both squads 11-0? I don't think so.
No, I didn't have that. That's what I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the trends of the two teams and Ohio State's development throughout the season. This is exactly the way I stated it on the eve of the season when I said I'm predicting Ohio State to win the national championship. I said they're not the best team now. They're about the 5th best team, but this is how I expect them to progress.
Do you remember my early season prediction?
I know you had Ohio State to win the national championship.
I did. But what did I predict in this game?
I don't know.
I predicted Ohio State to lose this game and win a rematch for the national championship.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I predicted Ohio State to win this game.
Because I thought both would make the playoffs.
Yeah. So are you still predicting Ohio State to lose this game?
Right now, I think it's close, but I think we can win a close one. I like the way this offense is trending, and I'm very confident in this defense.
Yeah, I think the defense is really good. Yeah. I don't know what about this team is not working right now. It's all working. They're playing really well. Not that they tore Penn State to shreds on offense, but yeah, they're playing about as well as they can right now.
I think it comes down to McCord playing a clean game.
Yeah, I think he is to play a clean game. I said that to an earlier caller about, him playing a clean game. And if he's got a turnover, that it's not consequential, that it's, sometime mid-second quarter, midfield, and it's not, 5 minutes left in the game. And that I think that it would be good if Emeka Egbuka would assert himself as a go-to option that can keep some heat off of Marvin Harrison, whether that frees up Marvin Harrison or with all the attention going to his side, that Egbuka has a big game between he and Stover, but more so him because, he's capable of bigger plays.
I mean, the most comparable opponent is Penn State versus both teams.
Sure.
What did you tell Dace that we didn't have when we played Penn State?
Exactly. We didn't have Travion Henderson.
Or Emeka
Egbuka. And to me, Travion Henderson right now is the best running back in the conference, if not
and one of the best in the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am so impressed with Travion Henderson. Way beyond his stats. If you would have shown me his stats at the beginning of the season, I would have just thrown up my shoulders and said, okay, that's nice. But he's such a more physical back than he was in 21 and 22.
Plus, we can utilize him as a receiver.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Are the two best teams playing in the Georgia Dome in the SEC title game?
No. Not quite. Probably the best team is. I told an earlier caller who thought Georgia was by far the best team and was just going to waltz to a three-peat that I do think that Ohio State's the most capable team of beating them. And I think Alabama's next, and then Michigan's next.
Okay. You think those are the four best teams?
Yep.
You're not buying Oregon?
Well, I'm buying them. I think they're a good team, but they're not better than those four teams.
Okay. I think that's close. No?
Yeah, I guess it's close.
Okay.
Every time I hear that Oregon's close to Ohio State blasts them. And I know that hasn't happened like 50 times, but I'm talking about, and I know I'm going into the archives and it's not even relevant for what's going on right now, but I think it's just a different version of the 2009 season and that Rose Bowl game and the 2014 season and the national championship game. And those Oregon teams are 5 and 6 point favorites against Ohio State teams that I was stating up until that game. We could see these rosters. If we could see these rosters 5 years from now, there are going to be so many more Ohio State players in the NFL than this Oregon team that's a 5 or 6 point favorite.
Excuse me.
I would say the same thing right now.
Yeah, that win over Oregon in the Rose Bowl was a classic. And one of the best wins of the Tressel era, if you look back on it.
Yeah, it was needed.
Very much. Florida State, are they done?
Yeah, they probably are.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I hate to see that
Me
be
too.
decisive, but I just don't see how they weren't at the top of the heap in my estimation anyway. They were more like the 6th or 7th best team.
Okay. Is there a path for the loser next week?
See, we've got LBC Robbie. I understand that Oregon beat Ohio State the last time they played. That's not what I'm talking about. And Oregon obviously very much outplayed Ohio State. But if you're going to be real about that situation, give all credit to Oregon to winning that game. But that was CJ Stroud's second start. He was a different player 8 or 9 weeks later. I don't know that there's a football person that season who didn't say within 6 weeks later, Ohio State's a much better team than Oregon. And that played out over the course of the season. That Oregon team lost 4 games. They lost by 4 touchdowns in the Pac-12 championship game to a team that Ohio State beat in the Rose Bowl, missing 4 of their best players that opted out for the NFL draft. So LBC Robbie, I understand that is valid for you to bring up that game because I skipped that game, but I skipped it for reasons. But yes, don't compare Ohio State to Oregon. Is the bottom line.
Agreed. So, Texas. Is Texas back in the mix?
Well, I didn't see much of tonight's game, but they're really not that they weren't that impressive from what I saw, but are they in the mix? Are you talking about from a playing standpoint or from a logistical
playoff standpoint?
Sure, they're a factor. They could win.
Well, but more inclined now that Florida State is out.
Well, they just had a major injury to their best player, their most important player.
I think this maybe opens it up for them. Or the loser of next week. Does it open it up for the loser of next week?
Well, sure, if they lose. If Florida State loses, yeah.
Okay.
It shouldn't open it up for them if they somehow make it through and win, which they still should.
Oh, you think Louisville doesn't beat them?
Well, I don't know. I don't know who's going to win the game. Florida State can still win these games with a backup quarterback.
I think it makes it a lot tougher to beat Louisville in that title game.
Tougher,
I mean, come on now.
Louisville can barely beat Virginia. Florida State's so much better than everybody else in that league outside of actually Clemson's probably still the second best team in that league. Florida State can beat Louisville with a backup quarterback. Okay.
I think it's interesting. You know what though? What I wonder about Texas though, Texas wins the Big 12.
Yeah.
And then Alabama beats Georgia. And they don't get in after winning in Tuscaloosa by 10 points. I still think that's a bad deal.
Oh, I think it's a bad deal too.
Otherwise, why go play in Tuscaloosa to start the season?
Yeah, why play that game? Exactly. Why schedule it? Why put yourself out there?
I still think that's BS. But
yeah, I agree with you. The game should count.
Coach of Northwestern, Big Ten Coach of the Year?
Yes.
Gotta be, right?
Yes.
Think about that situation.
Yes. There were people that didn't think that they would win a game this year. I think I picked them 2-10. I thought they'd beat Wagner.
Right.
And then they would somehow figure out how to beat somebody in the Big Ten. Rutgers or Indiana. No, they didn't play Indiana. But anyway, some bad team in the Big Ten, they'd squeak out some win. Well, I thought about 1-11, but I'm almost certain I picked them 2-10. Did not see this coming. Nobody saw it coming. For them to be bowl eligible still with a game left. Yeah. They've beaten Maryland, Minnesota,
Right.
Purdue. This isn't a tremendous, run of wins, but for them, to be 6-5 right now, it's remarkable.
Well, does this prove that somebody other than Mark Rogers' man crush, Pat Fitzgerald, can succeed at Northwestern?
Well, I've many times said that there's this.
That's your guy, Mark. That's your guy.
There's this fallacy out there among many people that I guess haven't been around long. People are making dumb comments in the chat. Anyway, that Pat Fitzgerald is somehow like the only guy that's ever won at Northwestern. No.
Randy Walker won there.
Randy Walker was having a great run there when he
Gary Barnett won there.
Gary Barnett went to the Rose Bowl and the Citrus Bowl and had two really good teams. Yes. Yep. It can be done.
Yeah, but you know what though? Mark had him as the best Big Ten coach like ever. He was like
ever. Yes. Yes. I had Fitzgerald 1, Woody 2, Bo 3. Yeah, that's how I ranked them.
You were a big Fitz guy, though, to be fair.
Yeah,
Mark.
I was a big Fitz guy. I was.
All right, Mark. Well, it's an interesting week of college football.
We still have to wait to see if David Braun's going to go to 2 Big Ten championship games like Fitz did.
Well, you know what? Maybe he'll eventually make Mark Rogers #1 ranking on Big Ten coaches, too.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, and Sharon Moore will be second.
Next week, let's see him cry.
It's so funny to see. There's a semblance of they're either Michigan fans or there might be Oregon fans who are just trumpeting Oregon's win against Ohio State. Yeah, Oregon beat Ohio State in 2021. What do you want me to do about it? Yes.
What was that? Like 1 win out of like 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Indiana beat Ohio State in 1987. So, okay, fine. Got it. Don't compare Ohio State and Oregon.
Anthony Thompson, Mark.
Yes.
What did Earl Bruce say about that win?
Yes, it was the darkest day in Ohio State history.
All right. It's a pleasure, my friend. Have a good one.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. You take care of yourself.
Yep, you too.
Have a good night. All right. Yes. I would love for anybody in the chat that wants to argue any of these points. Yes, Oregon beat Ohio State once. Absolutely. Ohio State loses football games. They lose less than anybody else, but they do lose football games. Okay. And anyone that's got half a brain knows that over the course of that season that Ohio State was a better team than Oregon. That's not really that debatable. But on that day in Columbus, Oregon was much better. Decidedly better. They won 35-28. But CJ Stroud just, I think we're kind of seeing some evidence of that in the NFL. I remember being on Twitter. I didn't even know, I'm way past watching NFL preseason games. I don't even watch NFL regular season games much anymore. But the night that CJ Stroud was playing his first preseason game, which I was completely unaware of, but then I started to see all these tweets all over the place about CJ Stroud's a bust. And I was like, what? This is like the first week of August. What are people talking about? Oh, he's like 4 for 11 or 2 for 4 passing in a preseason game and threw an interception. Oh, That's horrible. And people are just roasting him. Like, are these people this stupid? They can't be that stupid. They can't possibly be that dumb. They have to just be just stirring people up. They can't be that stupid. But I think some of them are that stupid. And so I take great pleasure in every time I notice that CJ Stroud has thrown out another just remarkable NFL game like he did last weekend. Like 2 weekends in a row, he pulled out games like in the fourth quarter in the final minute. And one of them, he set an all-time rookie record for passing yardage that I throw out something like, well, this guy sucks. Didn't you see his preseason stats? Yes. Yes. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, Oregon beat Ohio State once. Yeah. Okay. And they weren't as good that year as Ohio State. They just weren't. Purdue beat Ohio State 1 year, but were they as good that year? No. They lost 6 games. They lost 7 games. They weren't as good. But they won that game and should be given all sorts of great credit for it. Yes, Ohio State had a weak run defense. CJ Stroud did play. He played well considering, his lack of time. He played well considering his lack of time at Ohio State at that point. That was only a second game, but he did make a couple critical errors late in the game. But yeah, I had to shoot. I remember well because I had to come on here and defend him from crazy Ohio State fans who were going crazy about how he should be benched immediately. All right. Okay. Appreciate y'all being here. Mark, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you for that. You get my picks, which I posted a tweet today that I'm not encouraging people to go out there and use my predictions. I just do this for fun. But hey, just about every year in 40 some years, what have I done this? Maybe 41 years. I've picked, I think since 1982, I've predicted college football games, and I ran the numbers today. So if you would have taken all my games against the spread and put $100 on each game, you'd be up about $1,800, and all my money line selections for the season, you'd be up over $3,100. And then the Steve Merrill under the radar selections that are now 20-5. He got today's right. I had a bad run of, even though my overall record today picking the games was fine. Let's look at my record. All right, what do we got here? We've got, let's see. So let's look at the against the spread. So I thought Michigan would cover. Got that wrong. I took Louisville to cover. They did. Took Rutgers. Shoot. There's an unlucky one. I took Rutgers in 20. They lost by 21. Lost that by a point. Took BYU in 25.5. They covered. Took West Virginia to cover 5. They did easily. I took Arizona to cover. They did. I took Georgia to cover. They did. Took Clemson to cover. They did. Took Iowa. Iowa killing me here. Iowa missed a field goal and an extra point on their last touchdown. So I lost that by a half point. USC certainly did not cover. They lost the game. Notre Dame covered, got that. Ohio State covered, got that. Oregon covered, got that. Houston was winning this game by like 2 or 3 touchdowns, and they blew it. And Oklahoma State got a backdoor, or I guess what is considered actually a front door cover. So I missed that one. Kansas State only won by 3, so I did not cover that one. Oregon State, I thought they were going to kick a game-winning field goal. They didn't. So I missed that one, but I took Florida in 12.5. I took Nebraska, Iowa State. They lost by 10. So I missed that one. I think it came out to 13-9 against the spread. Then in terms of the money line, I'd have to go through the money line, the odds on that. But I missed, I took a shot with Rutgers upsetting Penn State. And it was a close game till about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And I got the rest of these all right, except, let's see, I missed on USC. And I missed on Oregon State. So what is that? 3 out of 21? Iowa State. So I went 17-4 straight up. So there we go. There we go. Yes, I've been picking games. I started picking NFL games 3 years before that. 3 years before. 3 years before doing college games, but I don't pick NFL games anymore. I stopped that. What was I going to say? I saw something in here. Well, our betting guy, Steve Merrill from Wager Talk, tells me that I'm crazy well, he doesn't say I'm crazy. He says I do really well for picking every game. He said, the Vegas lines are so sharp. There's no way you should be trying to pick every game. And I pick all the top 25 games. So I could raise my percentage easily if I would pick out the games I was confident in. Maybe I'll do that next season because my percentage would go way up. Like today, I would have taken that BYU 25.5. That I was super confident in. West Virginia -5, super confident. Georgia 9.5. Those three, I was really confident. Notre Dame, those 4 for sure. I don't know beyond that. Maybe Florida 12.5. Maybe. Lemansky, thanks for being here, man. Here's to the Big Ten scoring. Phil Parker gang got a safety in their win. Yes, they did. They got a safety, but they needed to hit an extra point for me to have an extra win on my prediction record. But I think it was blocked. All right. Appreciate y'all being here. The voice of college football. Folks, yeah. It's rivalry week. So we're going to do our best to deliver tons of content. So please be here. We will. Next scheduled show is the College Football After Dark show, which is at 10 o'clock Eastern on Sunday night. And then also we got the Big Ten Live show on Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern. But again, as many times as I can get media people together to discuss any of these rivalry games, we will just go live and throw together a live stream. And I'm going to do breakdowns on all of these games, as many as I can get to, folks. If I didn't have all these team channels to run to, I would. We're doing our best and going to do our best in the off season to streamline this outfit a little bit better, so we can do a better job on the main channel here. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, everyone. John and Mark and Michael and all of you folks. Linda's here. And Rob J., thank you for being here at the Voice of College Football. And we will see you sometime on Sunday